I was so chubby. I was so chubby that the girls at PE class, I didn't realize I was chubby. Kids are incredible. When I think back to how I felt as a kid, I didn't even know I was chubby. I remember just this one kid named Jack. He was from England, blue eyes, blonde hair. He took his shirt off, I guess, and he had abs. I was like, cool, me too. So I took my shirt off and I'm running next to Jack.
Welcome to DMP. Congratulations on choosing curiosity over complacency. Let's get this started. The guest of honor this week is Benjamin Carter at Carter Benjamin. Ben is a Caribbean-American singer-songwriter, artist, father, and a fellow student of life. He currently has over 31,000 monthly listeners on Spotify alone, not to mention his music spans across all platforms. Ben's music is groovy, thought-provoking, and uniquely vulnerable. He seeks to take everyone's walls down, including his very own. As he puts it, Caribbean raised me, but DMV made me. When I first came across Ben's music, after meeting him working out 5 a.m, I was a bit confused by his genre because of its uniqueness and its ability to fight against the powerful but repetitive currents of mainstream music. This excerpt from his website at carterbenjamin.com best describes his music style. Benjamin uses music to tell stories of heartache, love, addiction, gentrification, and racism. He does so in hopes of developing artists of the next generation to do the same. He's a musician and entrepreneur fueled by relentless enthusiasm and passion, with sights set on advocating for the mental, physical, and spiritual health through the undeniable power of music. Now just to name a few of his mile-long recognitions, he has performed at the legendary venue 930 Club in DC and released his 2018 single Cosmic, produced by a well-known producer Andy Seltzer through a collaboration with Warner Music Group and Distribution. Ben's 2020 single Fragile and 2021 single Psycho, which is my personal favorite, have both been featured on New Music Friday and NPR Radio Play. Oh, did I also mention he's a beast in the gym? You can find all things Benjamin Carter on social media handle at Carter Benjamin and his website, carterbenjamin.com. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you for having me, dude. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
So, through our first encounter in the gym, our friendship has quite blossomed. And I came across you as a musician, of course, and of course, at first as a beast in the gym, as I alluded to. But I realized you had so many intersecting interest and passion, from books, neurobiology, mindset, personal development, creative. And what I mean by that is your titles of your songs: Cosmic, Fragile, Psycho, Time Again, that's coming soon, and your upcoming single Lost Control, right? All seem to suggest some sort of a theme of life and in life. How do you approach naming your titles, and what's the creative process behind them?
I think the biggest thing is titles really kind of come to me first. So I like Fragile is the best example I have for this. I wrote down on a note in like 2016 on my phone, and at the time I wasn't really doing music, but I've always been writing music, but I just wasn't doing the whole like thing that I'm doing now. And I remember I was just finishing college, and I remember the walk from my house that I was living at to to the campus, and I remember just being on my phone and singing some weird melody about being fragile and going to break. And I was just going through a breakup with my now wife. We had broken up, and I just knew I wanted to write a song called Fragile, but I didn't really know what to say. And so I kind of wrote some lyrics down, whatever, never touched it again. In DC in 2018, I kind of started again, but I just didn't really feel it. By 2019, I'm sitting there in the studio session with a great producer. Actually, in this studio right here. This used to be his studio. And I met him, great artist, named Tim Atlas, and he's a fantastic producer as well. And we got together and we just start working. And I say the line in there, shoot my shot in case I get it. Fragile if I don't. Bet you that I can't forget it. And as soon as I was able to finally get the word fragile, I was like, this is fragile. This is the idea. I was sitting on it for for fucking like 4 years, that I couldn't figure out what I wanted to say, but I finally was able to like say it, and it was a feeling of knowing like, okay, we got it. But most songs I come up with, they usually start from a word. They usually are like, it's like one word or one phrase, and it flows from that phrase for me. It's pretty stream of consciousness, and like very much like I'll come up with the phrase and then I'll start from verse one and through. Some people really like to focus on a chorus first and then build around a chorus. I like doing that in studios with people because it's like it challenges me. But for the most part, I'm a very much like, that's my phrase. Now let's write an entire thing, work my way to the chorus. And it's like, it really is me telling a story. So if that makes sense, it's like I'll say how I feel in a verse, and then I'll get to the chorus, and now finally I'm now getting the chance to speak the story. And that, so I'll write very linear, like here's the phrase, here's the title, here's the like, don't let me go. I'm so sad. I hate being alone. Whatever that is. And then I will write a whole song based on that feeling that I felt with that phrase or that word. Cosmic was similar, as I just was sitting outside and I was told myself, I got to write a song, because I had only had one song out, which was written, which was Hills. And I was like, dude, I got to write a song today. And I was getting really good at writing songs on walks because I would have to walk everywhere in DC. So then I went for a walk and I was like, dude, I remember sitting down at the wharf in Washington, D.C., staring at the anthem. And I was like, one day I'll play there. And I was just staring at it. I got to figure out how to do a song. And I was like, I know cosmic satisfaction. I was like, cosmic satisfaction always bring a new mystery. And I just wrote it down. I was like, cosmic satisfaction, constant. And then I just kept going and going and going from there. And I'm singing into a voice note on my phone because I didn't even have a guitar with me. I didn't have anything with me. And I'm standing out on a Sunday with all these people out there. But I'm like, dude, I got to record this. And I recorded it all. We got to play it at 9:30 Club, a couple weeks later, which was awesome and really special. And then 2 months later, I got to record it at Warner, which was also, wait, how is this happening? Moment. And I had just started. I was 2 months into doing music. So that was really cool.
Yeah, it's like the power of cosmos, right? Which is very meta and very symbolic in nature, because when you wrote this song of cosmic satisfactions, cosmic significance, and then the stars begin to align and you start to feel the cosmic alignment through performing at the legendary club without having any released singles at the time, which is bonkers.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was literally something I have to fight against, actually. And that one thing I really try to get to a lot of artists and younger creatives who I'm with is I'm like, the idea of like, hey, this is crazy and it feels crazy because it is a dream come true for you. What I had to realize is it wasn't a dream come true for someone else, because I played it and it was some local guy in DC who had 9:30 Club. It was like not a packed out venue, wasn't crazy. I didn't headline. I was like second or third that night. Everything in my mind was like, it was like for this radio big thing that he had. And I was like, everything in me afterwards was like, oh, this wasn't a dream come true. You're just a stupid kid. But it's like, no. Like 2-3 months ago, I wasn't specific enough, I will say, if we're going to talk like manifestation, all that stuff, 2-3 months before, I was at 9:30 Club watching a band play, and I had no songs recorded. I had nothing at that point. And I'm sitting there watching them going, one day I'll play here. And I just felt incredible. And I was like, one day it's going to happen. 3 months later, it's happening. I don't even have music out yet. And so I was like, I now look back on it and I'm like, man, I have compassion on my 4 years ago self, like he didn't know any better. But I wish I could just like help that version of me just be like, dude, stay here, stay grateful. This is beautiful. Just because someone else is like, well, you didn't headline. Well, it's not yours. Well, you're not really that big of a deal. Like, dude, you got to play 9:30. That's all you wanted. That's all I cared about at the time. And so the moment was super special for me. And I've learned along the way, let it be special for you. Let what God is doing be special for you. And don't look for affirmation for other people to have the same feeling towards your story, because they're not living your story. So they might just be like, that's cool. You know what I mean? They like, and I was looking for people to be like, oh my God. And some people were like, yeah, man, I mean, whatever. I was like, fuck, this isn't that. Maybe it's not cool. But it was so cool. And I look back now, like, I had no music out. I'm playing this thing, and it was beautiful. It was so much fun. But I agree with you. Yeah, the cosmos, cosmic satisfaction. I didn't even know what the word meant at the time, like the phrase cosmic satisfaction. I just kind of was sitting there, dude, and it just flowed out. I like was sitting out there and going, cosmic satisfaction. Like I wasn't very heady. I just kind of like, again, sometimes stream of consciousness, and I just will write and write and write. Sometimes that leads me to nothing. Sometimes it leads me to having a song that I really care about. But for me, it's all about the importance of actually like putting it to paper, saying it out loud, and then looking at it afterwards, and then deciding, you know, where should this go?
It's very interesting because from what you said with your elegant story, I sense a lot about a thread of vulnerability, right? Fragile, cosmic satisfactions. What am I doing with my life? We're just floating stardust into space. However, came here with a purpose, right? Or fragile. I went through a most recent heartbreak. Tragic. Heartbreak is one of the most tragic and emotionally fraught things you can experience. I will know as a clinician. At the same time, without you being sulking in it, you lean into your creative process and you sort of just sprout it out. You almost did a verbal journaling, detoxing and downloading all these thoughts from your headspace into paper, pen to paper, or mouth to voice memo in your case. How do you view vulnerability, and why do you think it's so important for especially young men these days?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, man, I think I'm gonna tell people I'm gonna brand myself from now on as the black male Brene Brown. Um, because I was like, I think she's fantastic. My wife's obsessed with her. She's the one who really got me like listening to Brene, and I'll listen to a couple podcasts with my wife Yaz. But the but Brene's obsession with shame and vulnerability is like, dude, my obsession with it is that I lived it. Like in not being vulnerable, but like that shame, that guilt, all of that stuff, that really, it all comes out of my songs, a lot, from like even bad habits to everything else. Um, I think it's really, really important. And I'm a Christian, and one of the things I remember that my pastor he told me, years ago, he was like, try to like find like a resolution maybe like at the end of it, or da da da, and everything's bad, but I don't know, everything's gonna be okay, or something. And I just kind of was like, I took that and I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like I was like, because when I read Psalms, the Psalms are, for those who don't know, it's this book of the Bible with all these tiny little like poems and songs and these things of this person singing songs about what's going on around them, but their relationship with God. And some of them are not like, God's awesome, life's so cool. Some of them are, why have you forsaken me? I feel like dust. I feel like dirt. I'm being trampled on. You're not here. Next chapter. God, I'm so grateful that you're. So it's like, whoa, what the? Like, if you choose the wrong day and be like, I'm just gonna read a psalm today, and you just read that one, you're like, I'm gonna read two psalms today because what the heck, that just ruined my day. Like, there's that feeling where it's like, I now, so in some songs, and Father Prayers, a single I put out a while ago, which was something I wrote in the pandemic, and I honestly I put no effort in really promoting it, none of that. But I had a great friend, one great mutual friend of ours, Chakati. He did the artwork for it for me, and it's a special song. But it wasn't a song that I was like really trying to like promote, put on project. But I did need to get out. I just was like, these lyrics matter to me. The chorus being, "I'm so close," I know you'll never leave me, but this shit's too hard alone. And if you're in the Christian space and you hear somebody like cuss talking to God in a prayer, that could throw you off, but for me, it's like, dude, that's how I was feeling. So it's just called Father of Prayer, but I was sitting there on the guitar, beginning of pandemic, lost my job. It's pandemic, Ahmaud Arbery's already been killed. George Floyd was about to be. murdered. Breonna Taylor has been shot and killed. Uh, I'm sitting there, playing guitar, and thinking about that, losing my job, and then, you know, having a baby, my first kid in 2 months. So I'm kind of like at this really dark place of like, what am I supposed to do? And the world seems really grim, and I'm just sitting in a room, and all I can sing is, "I'm so close. I know you'll never leave me, but this shit's so hard alone." Like, it's really, for me, it's about connecting people's best songs. I think sometimes when we try to, there is a method to the madness, but for me, it's all, now I look at the method in retrospect, and I can learn from myself, and I've learned from myself and my songs that I've written in the past of how to get to that place where I'm able to say something that we all feel, and try to sonically deliver it in a way that makes everyone be able to relate to it, or as many people as I can be able to relate to it and get the message. There's a method to that, but I don't really think about that when I'm writing it. When I'm writing it, it's get the words out that you feel in this moment, get the phrases out that you feel in this moment. And then can we tweak sonically? Can we tweak melody? Sure, like, let's figure that out to dress it up in a way that like is easily receptive, maybe, or if it's not supposed to be easily receptive, then let's do that too. Like, maybe the chords are really dissonant and it's really like, ugh, I don't want to sit in this, but it might actually show what's going on lyrically. And I think that's the fun part of art, is like being able to take these different elements and mix them together that don't seem to go together, and put them together and be like, I feel something. So I think all that to say with shame and vulnerability, to me, it's about being able to get to that place, say that thing, just get out of your comfort zone in your house, say that thing that you really authentically feel. Uh, that was a long-winded answer to talk about shame, uh, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, clinically, of course, like shame it's a long emotion, and there's definitely a lot of complexity to that. And yeah, I just want to recognize, because having someone like you from your background, from your community, representing and embodying vulnerability and mental health, and the important non-negotiable notion that you have to bet on yourself in order for the cosmos or the universe or God to do their jobs to propel you forward. But you got to take the initiative. But having someone like you, and the reason why I believe in the avenue of podcasting so much, especially the ethos of discover more, is how can we discover more about life when we don't talk to each other, right? This humanity is comprised of all these individuals. And I think it's an analogy by my great friend and co-founder of the podcast, Aiden. He talks about the port analogy to view through the world through, is the more pieces of the puzzle that you have, the wider the portal becomes. And the more comprehensive it becomes, the more benefits it brings to you. More perspective, more experiences, more lanes of truth, etc. But I do think you have to be vulnerable and humble to receive those lessons, to receive those signs. And in terms of vulnerability, I just want to double click on this real quick. And I would love for you to share this impactful moment that you had when your songs first got onto the New Music Friday around the US and around the world after the atrocity of George Floyd. And you gloss over so many intricate details and the long-winded tangent you just went through, but it's my job to dissect them one by one. So let's ride the vulnerability train for a little bit longer and just walk us through that experience of the impact of course, the tragedy and the death of George Floyd that rocked the world, but it reawakened the much needed movement to remind people that racism isn't gone. It's still very much endemic. But just walk us through in terms of the whole manifestation, in terms of how did you lean into the most tragic events in the summer, into Music Friday, and just almost like the dark and the light at the same time.
Yeah. So the story is dark light to dark to light now. But it was this moment of like, I already said where kind of the context was, but at that time, then once George Floyd was killed on my first day of being laid off, and so me and my friends decided to go up to Santa Barbara, because it was pandemic and I can get to Santa Barbara in like 30, 40 minutes. Just like let's just drive up to Santa Barbara and just chill for the day. Because there's no one on these LA highways. It was incredible. So we drive up to Santa Barbara. We're just hanging, chilling by the beach, chatting, and I'm just like, to be honest, I'm feeling like I'm living the dream. At that point, my company had laid me off, but I had this incredible, crazy moment where I'm sitting there freaking out, like I'm about to have a kid, but I'm screwed. I got to figure this stuff out. Okay, I got 4 months severance. Okay, so my kid's born in July. By August, I need a job. All right. Okay, how do we do this? And then I get a random phone call, and I'm kind of having anxiety still. I've already written father, and I get a random phone call, and this person's like, "Hey," I'm like, "Hey," and they're like, "Is this Benjamin Carter?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is him." Well, someone called us, and she seemed so confused. She was like, "Someone called us, and they told us that you needed an extra 4 months severance." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "So yeah, so you're gonna be good, for you're taken care of for the rest of the year." And I was like, "What? Okay." And they're like, "Okay." I was like, "Is it because I'm having a kid?" They're like, "Ah, that's probably why." Anyway, just calling to let you know. What kind of phone call is this? And then they got off the phone. I still have no idea who made the call. I have no clue who called this person and told them, give this kid an extra 4 months. And I'm sitting there like, all right. And I get off the phone, and me and my wife looks at me, she's like, who was that? And I tell her, and we're bawling our eyes out, holding each other in the kitchen, because I'm sitting there going, how is this? I was I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get this job. I don't know how these things are gonna come together, but I'm gonna try to find a job. We gotta make some money. I'm scared. And then I'm like, the answer to my other prayer came together. I want to be artist full time. That's all I want to do. All I want to do is make music. And so I'm sitting there going like, someone's gonna pay me till the end of the year. I'm now a full time artist. I am now getting paid and so it's like that perspective shift, and I've just always been that, I guess, delusional and naive to allow myself to play those little story games where I'm like, all right, now I'm a full-time artist, and I got to play that for the rest of the year. So I'm pulling up in Santa Barbara fully like, you know what, things are bad, the world's going crazy, but we're good. And then by the time I got back from Santa Barbara, I'm sitting at a friend's house and I'm reading about George Floyd, and I didn't know what to say, and I'm watching the video kind of, but at that point I kind of kept myself away from. I still don't think I've watched the full video. And I sat there and I was just, kind of said some stuff on social with everybody else saying stuff on social, but I was fed up by that. And the next week, Fragile was supposed to be released, but it kind of felt like good timing, as well, to like get the message out um, of vulnerability. So I was like about to pull the song completely. I was like, dude, just not the time. Let's not. Maybe we should put the song out. Like, I was trying to make this about me. And then my manager also was kind of like, yeah, as a black man himself, was also like, you are black. You do realize that, right? Like, he was like, this is kind of about you. Like, he's like, this is about everyone who looks like you in this time. And I'm like, I forgot I was black. So then, so then I was like, all right. And we switched all the marketing stuff, like within like literally 2 days, like the posts and all that were the song and were the teasers of the song and the music video and all that stuff. But it was like, just because I'm fragile doesn't mean I'm broken. Just because I'm fragile doesn't mean I'm broken. Just like all these different things, and saying the black body is fragile but not broken. The black body is fragile but not broken. And we just kept posting that stuff. And I was like, cool, sweet. It ain't like crazy. It wasn't like these awesome moments. But then I have this video on my phone of one night while we're, editing and creating that stuff, getting ready and putting the black body is fragile but not broken. And this feeling hits me, and I'm like, oh shit, this song is gonna pop off. And I have video of myself, my pregnant wife, late at night, me running around the apartment, being like, yo, this today we're 4 days away from releasing Fragile, my song Fragile, and I'm like telling her like, oh, it's gonna go off. She's like, what does that mean? And one thing I study of that video is like, I had no idea the details. Sometimes now in life, I like to pretend like this is exactly what's gonna happen. And that's usually when I know I'm wrong. Because in that moment, I ended up being right. But when my wife said, she's like, what do you think's gonna happen? I was like, I don't know. I just know it's going to pop off. It's going to do well. And it made me almost doubt myself. Like in the thing, you can kind of see my body language shift when she started to ask me like detailed questions. But I was like, I don't know, dude. I just am telling you, something's gonna happen. Song comes out, Friday hits. I look, I'm like, holy crap, this is New Music Friday. Like the New Music Friday. How the hell am I on New Music Friday? I don't even have a label. These are all major label artists. The world is listening to my song. Oh my God, all new indie. What the heck? Okay. And next morning, wake up, Outliers. Holy crap. And then I'm just watching all these playlists, Spotify playlists. Song jumps up over 200,000 streams in a month. And I'm sitting there like, dude, this is crazy. But that's where the dark came in. Now we have guy who's believed, who knows, but doesn't really know how. And now he's seeing all this cool stuff happen. But in the midst of everything else, now still having a kid, it's not equating to actual money. Like he's not rich. He doesn't know what's going to happen. He's not been signed. So then I get confused and I get anxiety every day because I go, I don't have another song to follow this up with for another 4 months at least. So then it turns dark and I have panic attacks, anxiety, and I delete all my apps, I delete all the stuff, but I'm just inside, I'm just riddled with fear, like, oh, this is gonna stop. The plays are gonna stop. And when I tell you this song got up to over 200,000 streams in a month and then slowed down to probably like one of the lowest streamed songs I'd ever had, it happened like that. It just like became a normal song in the streaming like 100 streams a day, which for a lot of artists that sounds like a lot for some artists. So I don't mean to like diminish that, but like I just went from like 200,000 to there, and me just going to anxiety and be like, I don't know what to do. Um, and the light part came last year while I was at kind of a darker, still in that kind of season of trying to figure out how do I manage this anxiety? How do I manage this stuff? And as I was meditating, as I'm reading different books, as I'm doing all of this stuff, I'm reading Think and Grow Rich, I'm reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I'm reading the Bible, I'm reading Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, John Mark Comer, I'm reading all these books, and I'm meditating every day, I'm praying, I'm journaling, because I'm just like, dude, I gotta get this, I gotta get my mind right. And I become kind of detached. I'm detached from Fragile at that point, because I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm like, I assume the song's dead. I'm just focused on the new stuff that we're doing. And then I get a text. Hey man, you cool with Fragile being on this Netflix TV show? I don't care about being on a Netflix TV show. I'm like, that doesn't help anybody. Like besides a nice check. I'm like, who's Shazamming songs on Netflix? So I'm like, whatever. Yeah, let's do it. I was like, I'll take the check. I noticed my Shazam start going up once the show comes out. Some friends start posting like, "Holy crap, I'm listening to Benjamin Carter on 20 somethings Austin." I'm like, it's working. Still not like hyped. I'm like actually off social media again because I'm like trying to get my mind right for the new year. It's almost the end of the year last year. And then I was like, I should probably get back on when I'm coming back. I was like, I should say something on TikTok. So then I like make a quick TikTok with me and my daughter laying in bed and me being like, notice my Shazams went up a lot because my song went on a Netflix TV show. That video gets over 1 million views. I watch my streams now. I think the song's like top streamed on Spotify. It's definitely top on like Apple, and it's like it just starts going up, and I'm like, wait a minute, what the heck is happening again? And now I'm watching the song get the same love, but I'm now not anxious. I'm not confused. I'm just like, no, man, like what's for me is for me. How these things happen and the waves they happen, I got to be okay with. But I'm not going back to that guy that was freaking out in the in between. I'm going to love this in between moment and like be excited and love people and talk with people and hop on podcasts and just do what I can to help other people in between. And then the things that get blessed in my life along the way, I'm like, let's go. Like that was a need. We need this to go well. We need this so that, we can tour, we can bring this music out to people, so we can get it out to more audiences, so we can touch people's lives. There's a need for this. Cool. How do we get it? That's just the process. That's the work. We set up a plan. The Bible says a man makes a plan. Proverbs 69 says a man makes his plan, but God directs his steps. And I'm just like, that verse for me is like this weird, funny paradox where it's like, all right, well, I'm going here, but if it looks like this, the whole way, like I'm cutting and curving and left and right and all that kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, that might happen, but I will end up at this destination that I have my eyes on or somewhere greater. But the in between, that's walk by faith, not by sight. That's move around. That's figure out how to get there. So that's my fun dark to light, my dark light light journey, whatever it is. That's what it basically is. And I feel at this place now in life where my process is really fixated on maintaining this feeling, this mindset, this identity, this belief system versus writing the best song. And that seems counter to some people, but to me, it's like, this is where I want to be. And we kind of talked before the podcast, I can make better business decisions. I can make better songs if I'm here. It might take me longer than the person who's in their craft every single day and focusing on the intricacies. It might take me longer. I'm not saying I'll get there faster than somebody else who's always in the studio, but I'm really, really focused on making sure I minimize as many moments as possible in my life with the kid, with the wife. I want to minimize that moment of depression and anxiety attacks as much as possible because I care about my surroundings, my family, and I don't want them to see me with these anxiety attacks every single day. So my process of the gym, meditation, journal, you know, therapy, mentorship, prayer, like those things, focusing on how do I get these routines in place in a very, very organized way that I am almost always at this feeling of abundance, of love, of unconditional love. Even when bad things are happening, I feel composed. I know who I am. I know I'm loved. I know I'm cared for and cherished. And I can now be composed under pressure and walk in and make good decisions that can help me and my family and those around me. So
Yeah, the seasons of life, right? Seasonality of life. Because I always talk about this. If it's always sunny and no rain, it's drought and desert. But if it's always rainy, it's flooding and nothing grows. So you need the interplaying of different seasons to truly cultivate the optimal conditions. And I just want to highlight your such an amazing story about you flipping the narrative, not just flipping, almost embracing and embodying the narrative of George Floyd's tragedy through the lens and the song and the creative avenue of fragility by saying that black bodies are fragile but never broken. I got goosebumps and I had a full stop on this side of the screen because, man, it's because we live in this world of or, but it's always and. You can be fragile and unbroken. You can be weak and have strength. And I feel like we live in this polarizing and dichotomy, it's dichotomy. Everything's dichotomy, right? Everything is binary, but the life is in the nuances. And this is the reason why I love these long form conversations, because when you truly let go of what you want to hear, what you think you should hear, and just sit into the space of this container, there's so much insight, not just this conversation, but any long form conversations you can with your neighbor, with elders, with someone that's younger. You just don't know what life's going to present you through or as. But I really, really love the lyric and how you were able to embody the fragility in a very strength-based approach. That's really powerful, man. So I just want to highlight that for you. And yeah, let's talk in terms of your habits, because you're very mindful, right? And I'm very grateful that we became fast friends through the AM morning crew, which is, that's how you know. That's almost like an inheritance preliminary vetting, because you know if you show up at 5 a.m. or 5:30 to work out, it's either you used to be fat like I used to be, or or there's something, you have that work ethics, or you have this vision, you have this
Yeah.
unwavering commitment, because you don't just work out because you want to, right? So, but in terms of, because it's always fascinating to me when I talk about these mindfulness exercises or practices, especially journaling, because I reckon when I journal, sure, I'm a creative, but my creative genius is not in the musical sense as you are. So it's not lyrical, even though I like to articulate my thoughts in a particular way. So as an artist and musician, what does your journaling process look like?
It changed up last year. So I've actually, I don't know if it's the case for everyone who grows up kind of in the westernized Christian world, but like we definitely, journaling was kind of like a normal thing in like youth groups and stuff at church. It's like they were like, at least in church settings I was at, so I was always journaling, but it was always like based off a devotion we would do, or like what did I read from the Bible, and then writing down my notes from like what I read in the Bible and how that applies to my life. So I got in that practice probably from a young age, like when I was like maybe 13-ish or whatever, 12, 13, that I was always writing, journaling. I was writing songs from even younger, so I'd always have a notebook. But then the process of like journaling my feelings, my emotions kind of came through that. But it was always, what am I getting out of this scripture thing? And sometimes you're reading scriptures, like I said, that are like, I'm forsaken. And I'm sitting there like, I got nothing to say. Like, this isn't helpful. So, yeah, last year I read this really good book by Pete Scazzaro. He's an author, a great author, but he had this book called, there's a bunch of emotional healthy spirituality is one. I think I read emotionally healthy discipleship. And he just said really briefly, it wasn't a main point of his thing, but he talked about how um, in the book, how like he'll ask himself in the morning, like he'll think back to thing that he did, and he'll like, while he's journaling or as he's praying or whatever through the day, he'll go through and be like, what emotions were you feeling then? Like, what is, he said something really profound. He was like, sometimes God, people, the church world, which is why so many people don't want to talk about Christianity, I feel like, in church and all that, because in America, we suck. Which is, I'm totally okay with just admitting that. And one of the things that he was saying was like, uh, he said, God's speaking to me through my emotions. He created them. So I need to find out what he's trying to say through this emotion. He created these emotions. I'm feeling it. What is God trying to tell me based on the emotions I'm feeling or I felt in that moment? So kind of like this more analytical way. So now I have this journaling method where every single day I start my morning with, what emotions are you feeling right now? And then I'll write those out, and then I'll put and why. And then I'll go, read scripture. I'll do, I actually read the Bible. I read uh, a daily Stoic devotional, The Daily Laws by Robert Greene, and I read the Tao, the Tao Te Ching. So I'll read all of those together, and for me, it's just like a great, well-rounded understanding of practicality, spirituality, and my specific, religion that I practice and teachings through Christianity. So I'll read all of them in the morning. But before, I used to write down those emotions that I'm feeling and then take a moment in silence and meditate. Uh, but I kind of switched it up, and I actually like it better for me, at least through the day, is now I will meditate before I even touch the journal pad. And usually it's like a dispensa one, or it's just a simple mindfulness. I work with Open. I'm like a little Open ambassador now. So it's a great app, mindfulness app, that I've really come to enjoy. And so I'll hop on there, choose something, sit through one of theirs, or do like a Joe Dispenza meditation, which if you're new to meditation, definitely work your way up to his. It's definitely different. And then at the end of it, I find myself creating the emotion that I kind of want for the day. So then I feel overwhelmed and grateful. I feel at peace. I feel rested. I feel refreshed. I feel abundant. I feel those things and I write them down. Then I go, why? And then I talk. But there were some moments where I realized I wasn't creating my day. I was reacting still. So when I would wake up in the morning, like, how am I feeling? Restless, annoyed, whatever. Why? Because of these things. It's like, okay, but we didn't do the change part yet. It's probably the biggest thing for me is like tapping into creating the emotion of gratitude every single day, like being just at peace and grateful for everything I have and for everything that I know that I believe will come to my life. Might be challenges and stuff, but that's that manifestation, that belief, man, these things are coming to me. So let's stay grateful.
Yeah, and also I loved your very slick and beautiful product placement. So when you get that commission check, send some to my end, right, for endorsing that. But I loved your, yeah, I mean, as a daily meditator myself for the past 3 years, I am extremely scarce and protective and selfish over my 20 minutes. When I wake up around 5, a little bit earlier, that 20 minutes before I brush my teeth, before I go to the workout is my time. It's just myself and my inner thought. And I just want to get as close as I can to the power of discernment to see what I'm feeling, because emotions are transient. As once again, as a clinician, clinically speaking, people sometimes attach too much meaning to their emotions. It's like, oh, what happened? What are the causal factors? Oh, did I do something wrong? Was there an argument I wasn't aware of? Oh, was it my inner trauma? Sometimes those are the case, but a lot of times emotions are transient, just like our thoughts. We don't always have control over our emotions and thoughts. And I really, really loved what you talked about. God created these emotions. So what do they mean? That is such a powerful reframe, right? Of course, as a fellow Christian, first and foremost, I love these conversations and have this and uphold the influence of God in our lives. So I just want to, that's amazing to me. And C.S. Lewis, a famous Christian philosopher and author, he talks about God whispers in joy, but screams in pain, right? It's almost like,
Yeah, he said God's loudest. He said the megaphone. Pain is God's loudest like
exactly,
megaphone, or is God's megaphone.
exactly.
And I was like,
And that's
wait,
like the
what?
pain
Yeah,
teachers. And that's why I love personal development so much, because when you work on yourself, as you alluded to earlier, when you are feeling in your personal cup of this human, Benjamin Carter, your other cups generally get fulfilled. But as you said this earlier very, very well, that a lot of people have that process reversed. That's why midlife crisis happens. That's why people are climbing up the wrong buildings, right? Trying to curate the false sense of self because of parents, because of trauma, because of the patriarchal, toxic framework that we put on the pedestal of, oh, this is what success looks like. This is what men looks like. So I just want to really recognize that it's very, very powerful. And I could tell you're a ferocious reader. You have a lot of intellectual interest. You read a lot, I could tell. Where do you think that interest, this thirst for knowledge and growth comes from?
being the being the person everyone thought was dumb. For sure, there's definitely a piece of that in there. It was growing up. Growing up, I still remember first grade. My parents like came. Well, my parents talk about it a lot, but they're still like when first grade when they had like gave out the reading list for for the year. I guess like or it's first grade or third grade. I think it was the third grade actually. They gave out the reading list for the year, and I finished it in a month. And I was like, again, it's the third grade, but I just was like, so I love stories. I love reading. I was like, ah, and I finished the entire thing by like the fifth or sixth grade. I was writing short story like things like creating characters and writing short stories just for fun because I just was like, God, this is exciting. I love stories so much. And as I got older, I think possibly other people not liking to read, but going to the library, picking up books, and it was not like there was some fantasy, there was some like fiction, but man, I was pulling up in especially because I loved sports. I was pulling up in the sports section, and I would read books on skateboarding and NASCAR and dirt bike racing and soccer. And soccer, that's how I fell in love really with soccer, was through buying, like looking and reading books in the library and stuff. The, but I remember at one point I thought I was gonna be a NASCAR driver. I just was like, probably like third grade or something. I was like, dude, I could do this because I'm reading a book about NASCAR. Now, what threw me off, and as a kid, the certain things that just stick with you. I read about all the deaths in that same book in NASCAR, and I went, nigga, I ain't trying to die. I remember closing that book up and being like, probably like in the third, fourth grade, it's like, NASCAR's out of the picture. I got to find something else. And everything else that I just kept reading, I just love that, man. But there's definitely a piece of me that lost reading as much. So I got to college, still kind of bad student, wasn't like good with school, definitely wasn't reading those textbooks, that's for sure. And then got to my senior year of college, I failed out of music school, and just wasn't doing well. But I got to like officially do this organizational leadership thing, and major out of thing, organizational leadership major. And it was kind of a BS major, but I just wanted to graduate and I just wanted to get out. So I convinced them to move some credits around for me. Yeah, I begged them, not convinced. I was just like, please take some of my old music business credits and let's just make them count. Let's just say they count. I'm trying to get out of here, and it worked. And the books I read that year, I remember reading, stuff by Daniel Pink. I remember reading Emotional Intelligence. I remember reading what else? I remember reading Jim Collins' Good to Great. I remember, reading pieces of Built to Last, and I would read those things, and it was like this reinvigorated, like personal development, love of like business and how people move and understanding human psychology and how to lead people. And I was like, oh, this is exciting. And I kept reading through all of those books. And now I'm like, right, that's where I feel the most alive. So now my goal is just to stick to that natural inclination of like, I love reading these books. So it's really been up to last year, I kind of was reading maybe one book a year, but I would feel incredible on it. And it would feel incredible when I read it, but then I couldn't keep myself consistent. And last year, I read 3 books at once. There's just like, I got one book I'm going through on like a memoir over here. I have one on spirituality, and I have another one on like, practical business, investment. I'm reading Intelligent Investor right now, Benjamin Graham. So it's like, I'll have all 3 different subjects. And honestly, I don't even watch as much TV anymore because I'm like, these are so intriguing to me. And I have a different taste of each one. So I can just pop in on this book and learn, and pop in on this one and learn this one. And I don't even read music books. So I don't read a lot on like the music business or anything. I'm really intrigued with how we work, how like humans work. And that's the spiritual side of us, the emotional side of us, the business side of us. I'm really intrigued with
Yeah.
humans.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but from this side of the table, quite literally, you're taking this reverse engineering approach. You're going after this version of Benjamin Carter that you want to emulate, which is your future version of the most maximum potential. And you're reverse engineering reversely to know yourself, okay, if this is the type of human, if this is the type of father, if this is type of husband and partner and musicians I inspire to be, from a hindsight view, what steps should I be taking, right? And through that, you're making sure that your anchor doesn't get lost in life, because you sort of talked about this earlier, where even with your wife, Yas, when she had these visions of what she wanted to do, and she was living the reality as we speak, but she was caught up in anxiety because of, the future, right? Because it's like in Stoic philosophy, you don't want to borrow unhappiness from the future.
Yeah.
Right? You're a Daily Stoic Ryan Holiday fan. So, and it's very interesting and everyone's baseline always increases. It's very interesting. Of course, I have endless fascination with human psychologies and emotionality is whenever we're looking at something, our baseline's lower. But as you get closer, our baseline of satisfaction also increases. It's almost like as people who work out, the holy grail of workout is what? The pump. You're always chasing after the pump, but you will never get the pump because as you get bigger, your pump also gets bigger. So it's always this dangling carrot that we're always chasing after, but we will never achieve. But man, pump feels great.
Yeah, and I think actually even the yes thing, I think we actually talked about that not even on camera. And so that I think that was what we talked about beforehand. But with her, it was watching her that year, which would have been last year, she achieved insane heights. And I remember we talked about it, and I was so proud of her. I was at a different place most of last year where I was not believing in myself. I was not feeling great. I was trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to write and how I wanted to put that in music and what that was going to lead me to. But she was just like, I'm going to do it. And she did all the stuff, but the in between moments, she had some anxiety, she had some stuff, and I'm sitting there like depressed already. And I'm just like, dude, she's having anxiety, but she's also doing this. But by the end of the year, she achieved all the stuff that she set out. January, she said she was going to do this. December, she did it. And I was like this is just on money, finances, all that stuff. And I looked at her, and along the way, crazier stuff happened. I remember this year, I said, thank you for setting that example for me. That January, I said, I'm going to do this. December, I'll have it all that I said I'm going to set out to go do. But I'm going to work really hard for us, for our family, that those in between moments I don't do. And I was like, this isn't an insult to her. I was just like, because I was telling her in the moment, I was like, this isn't an insult to you, because I was worse than her all elite year last year. But I was like, but now you showed me that we will. It was so inspiring to see that we as humans with God, not without God, or if you want to say the universe or whatever, but like we are created beings. So we talked about this in our first conversation. I remember reading, I think it was Immanuel Kant or Descartes when I was in high school, and reading this stuff in like philosophy class, and them saying, I think therefore I am. And I remember being like, I was created, therefore I create. And that part of me being like, oh, I can create with God this future because he created me I'm not doing it out of nothing because everything's already created. God creates out of nothing. So I was like, we're going to create this future by the end of the year. It's going to happen. But because I know I'm going to try to go my year without doubt. And what are the tools I need for when doubt does come up, that I can manage it? Because it's going to come up, and it has plenty of times. It's only middle of the year, and I've had plenty of times where I've doubted myself. But I have the tools to manage it this time. And that's what I'm fixated on, is the tools for managing doubt, the tools for managing, not feeling great about myself and going back to the old version of myself, and being able to try to teach that to my family, to my wife, to my daughter, so that they now have the tools. So my wife can do, because I believe she's way better than me at most things in life. Like, I'm just like, oh, I want her to have these tools so that she now can just continually be like, oh no, I say I'm gonna do this and I always do it, but now I like never even doubt.
Yeah, because there are definitely negative emotions, but most emotions aren't good or bad. Are they serving you in the moment, or are they disserving you? And yeah, just to relive the offline conversations where you talked about we are created, therefore creativity and the ability to create is part of our DNA. And for non-Christians, and maybe you have some resistance hearing this as a listener, if you're not a Christian or you don't identify through any faith or spirituality, so let me provide this more tangibly. So if you think about the urge that's deeply encoded in our DNA, this creativity process, or the ability to create, is prehistoric. Cave paintings, like Homo sapiens. And what really established the human's dominance in the hierarchy of apex predators is our ability to create fire and tools, period. Language, sure, all those things came, but it's our ability to create. And yeah, I had this conversation with the last interview, episode 94, talks about how imagine the world where everyone was an artist and everyone could lean into this prehistoric design. Imagine the endless possibility of the world. And of course, Web 3.0, consumer blockchains, and metaverse and creator economy is coming the next 5 to 10 years, which is very, very, very exciting for me to see. With that being said, I just want to double click and revisit something. I'm a bit of a non sequitur, so we'll weave in and out of the personal to the macro. I sense a theme of mindset in what you just said, right? Because whether you want to discern the emotions that you have, or journal about it, or reflect on it, or believe in it, it all comes down to the simple mindset. And I just want to talk about the soccer real quick. First of all, I didn't know that your love for soccer started from reading, which is a full circle, right? It's like, how do you fall in love with a sport through reading? I never even thought about that, but worked for you. But I would love for you to share the interesting journey of your soccer.
Yeah, so I think it definitely obviously I lived in the Caribbean, so while I was in the Cayman Islands, soccer's happening everywhere around. But again, I was that weird kid who was reading so much that there was like I was reading Tony Hawk and Bob Burnquist about like their, how they were skating and stuff and being like, "No, I want to be like Tony Hawk. I want to be the next Bob Burnquist, because I was reading that, not because people were skating around me. So like reading for some reason just made it real in my head and just my imagination, just like this is all, this can happen. To the point where like Tony Hawk and Bob Burnquist opened up a skate park in the Cayman Islands. And I was there watching these guys by the time I was like in the 6th grade. And I'm like, I was just happy. And it's one of the most beautiful skate parks in the world. But I literally I stopped skating, much to how my journey with soccer is. But this, you can tell, is I stopped skating because someone told me, "Hey, we don't do this." And I was like, "What?" It was my cousin. I'll still remember it. I brought my custom skateboard that I begged my parents for. Got there. I said, "This is that." And they were like, they looked me in the face and said, "Black people don't do that. We don't skate." And it just slowly did that. So with soccer, it was the same, except through Cayman, I was not good. I was made fun of. You were talking about like, "Hey, you work out maybe because you were fat before." I was so chubby. I was so chubby that the girls at PE class, I didn't realize I was chubby. Kids are incredible. When I think back to how I felt as a kid, I didn't even know I was chubby. I remember just this one kid named Jack. He was from England, blue eyes, blonde hair. He took his shirt off, I guess, and he had abs. I was like, "Cool, me too." So I took my shirt off and I'm running next to Jack, and the girls start chanting, "Jack has abs, Ben has flabs," and I'm like, "What?" I tell that story to people and they're like, "That didn't happen." I'm like, "No, I really wish it didn't happen." It's probably why I go so hard in the gym now. And why most of these photos I have now are me with like this purple shirt on and or purple jacket on, no shirt, because I'm just like, oh, I work out. So it's my inner child and me just like, hey, where's Jack now? Anyways, so when I go to America, I moved to America in the 7th grade. I had just finished watching. By that time, YouTube had become a thing, and I was had watching soccer videos on YouTube, highlight reels every single day of like Ronaldinho, Cristiano Ronaldo, in his early days, Messi in his early days, Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and I'm watching all these videos over and over and over again. And then the World Cup happened 2006, and I'm like, okay. And then I moved to the U.S. July 30th, 2006, and I go, all right. No one knows who I am in the US. I remember this conscious thought, like, no one knows who I am. Kind of they knew because I skipped over that story. A hurricane happened. I was a refugee in the US for like 3 or 4 months. In Washington, D.C., my parents left me with my grandparents, and went back to Cayman to fix up and help everybody. And my dad was a pastor there. So me and my sister were like refugees living with our grandparents, and we were going to school for like 3 months when I was in the 5th grade. So I went to the school, and then turns out a year and a half later, my dad's like, "Actually, we're moving back to DC, and you're going back to that same school." So I'm like, all right, I know these people, but they don't really know me. I don't really know them. There's going to be a couple people I know when I pull up, but let's let's be the world's greatest soccer player. Like my brain was just like, I'm gonna be the next Pele. That's literally, I told myself that sentence, and I couldn't juggle a soccer ball. Like I could not even not couldn't juggle a soccer ball at that point. But I'm like watching YouTube videos every single day. I'm watching these guys called Ballas Berlin, and they would just do these crazy tricks juggling a soccer ball, and I was just like, I'm gonna do that. And bro, when I tell you something clicked in me. My mom, I remember her coming down to the basement saying, "Hey Ben, it's time to eat." And I'm drenched in sweat. I'm drinking like 5, 6 different water bottles a day, not trying to lose weight, but losing a ton of weight. And I'm just like sitting there, just like, no, not till I'm the next Pele, not till I'm the next Pele. Kicking the soccer ball, putting this bucket, like this like nasty bucket, all the way in the back of the backyard. We had this tiny, tiny backyard because it's the middle of the city in DC, in Northwest, and I'm just kicking it and trying to curve it around this tree and just curving it, trying to see, can I curve it into the bucket? Can I curve it into the bucket? Can I curve it into? And I kept doing that shit over and over again, juggling. By the time I get to school, I'm around 50, 60 juggles. They're like, I'm training really hard in practice, and people are like, oh, this guy's kind of good. By the end of that year, seventh grade year, I'm juggling around 100, 150 in a row. I just learned to like count, and I'm going, all right, I got 150. And then eighth grade year comes along. I have a coach from the high school being like, hey, do you want to move up early? Like, and I'm like, my parents and the coaches there were like, you should not be trying to move up early. You're not going to get playing time. And I was like, yeah, I won't get playing time. So I got to focus on juggling. I'm at 335 by the end of that year. Another coach comes to me. He goes, hey, stop counting. Focus on creativity. Focus on tricks. Who cares how much you can do in a row? And I said, got it. So then I started focusing more on tricks, started focusing on that. When I get to high school, I'm there. I finally made it to playing with like the varsity boys. I'm starting on the team with all these older kids, but I'm like, yeah, I got this. And the older kids just don't respect me. They just don't. They don't think I'm good. They make fun of me. They love me, obviously, like in this loving way, but I was looking for affirmation, and I was made fun of all the time. So for about 3 years, from freshman year of high school to 11th grade, I win. The most I win is a honorable mention twice, which is like third team, all league, which is still good. And that was all I got, and a couple assists, and I think I scored once in 3 years. I was always choking. I was always afraid. Our team won a championship in the 11th grade year. I remember we had won a championship, but my parents at that point, money was really tight. Things were bad. They weren't able to get me into a travel team. I was doing summer camps where scouts are telling me like, hey, you're wasting your kid's talent. He's only playing at high school level. And I'm sitting there going like, yeah, Dad, let me go. Like, let me go play these other things. But we didn't have the money. We only had one car. That car was always breaking down. It was just like, it just wasn't going to happen. So I'm already going 3 years deep of like, the soccer dream is dying fast. That whole time, music is slowly growing on me. But I'm like, the soccer dream's kind of dying. It's not going to happen. So that's great. We won a championship. Now all of these older kids are just graduating. Senior year comes around. The coach who had been with us those 3 years was like, hey, I got what I wanted, and there's no hope anymore on the team because it was just me. So then he was like, I'm out, and he leaves. And I'm going, what the hell? So now I'm like stuck with the athletic director who played soccer a little bit, but wasn't. This other coach had played like in Germany. He played professional, like all of this. And I'm like, dude. And then the baseball team players who just are sitting there going, yeah, I mean, let's stay fit in the off season. So we'll play some soccer. But this coach taught me more about like leadership, about life, about myself, how I work under pressure with words, like love languages, words of affirmation, all that stuff. I learned that from this coach and realized the power of that so much because I remember preseason, we're playing a game, and I'm a small guy, but I was about to fight everyone I met. And so I was on the field, and I'm just about to fight this other team. I'm angry. Things aren't going well. He pulls me off the field. He starts hitting me in the chest, and he's just like, you're the heartbeat of this team. You are the heartbeat of this team. You need to get your head together because if you can't do that, all the rest of them are going to fall apart. And I was like, whoa. The last coach, the only thing he said to me that I remember out of 3 years was, Ben, what the hell are you doing? This is different. So I was like, all right. And it just kicked back in the kid that moved to America, and we didn't win. We got out in quarterfinals, maybe. I think that was as far as we went. But I I think I was like second or third highest scorer in the league. I don't even know how many assists I got. Definitely a lot of assists. The league of all the coaches and officials, they get together and they vote player of the league, like who was the best player of the league. They voted me as the player of the league. Again, our team got to quarterfinals. Like we didn't win. There was other players who were like, we were way better. Like that's what I'm thinking in my head because we didn't win, and the coaches are voting me as the person that they're seeing on the field is like that kid on that team, best player in the league. I get that. I get other awards. I finally got first team for 3 years. I was getting honorable mention. Then I get first team of the league, and I'm sitting there like, what the heck? And just came from somebody speaking this life into me. You're the heartbeat of this team. You can do this. I believe in you. It just all clicked back, and I was like, right. I needed that. I needed someone to believe in me, to speak into me, and speak into my potential, speak into who I was, and see me for who I could be, not who I was being. And it just like, I don't play as much soccer anymore. I love the game so much. But when it came into music, a lot of that story also guides me a lot in music. Now I was like, we're being reminded of the people. I have certain people in my life who do that for me, who remind me of moments, who I can be. And then now me getting in the habit of how can I affirm myself daily of who I can be? How do I do that? And reading these books and stuff, I feel like that's just like they're like or little motivational guys and stuff. Like some people will, shit on the motivational person, but I'm like, I like it. Like I like some of that stuff because it's the person I need, which is myself usually in that moment, because I'm not there in person with a Ryan Holiday or Gary Vee or Eric Thomas or any of these guys. Like you can do it. Like I don't have that, or in my head, like in front of me, but like in my head, that voice is going through, and it's just another person speaking to my potential, who I can be. That I'm like, yeah, I can do this. I can achieve all the great things that I believe, that my music can do for people. I can actually do this. I feel like the seventh grade kid again, finally who moved to America and was like, yeah, we can do this. I feel like that now most days, because that guy was on to something. Someone said, I heard this week or last week, someone said success leaves clues. And I was like, oof. And I look back at that, and I look, and I'm like, what did I have in seventh grade where I went exponential results as a child? I went from nothing to, wow, I was doing pretty freaking well. How did I do it? Who was I? Success leaves clues. What were the things about that moment? And there's moments where I'm like, now I'm older. I need to have some more self control. I need to have, so like, you got to grow up in some parts of your life. But that kid who was willing to have no reservations and believe he could be the next Pele. Oh, I want to be that guy. Because even if I don't become Pele, what happens in the moment, that growth in the moment, what it affects and how it affects the people around me, that to me is greatness. It's like, greatness is like, for me, it's being willing to look like a fool, being willing to fail, being willing to tell people I have a dream, I'm okay, and get shot only a little bit afterwards and never get to see your dream come to pass.
The legacy lost.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Be willing to go for it. Like Martin Luther King's dream did come true. It did happen. You know what I mean? It just wasn't, he didn't get to see it. He didn't get maybe the results. He didn't get the thing. So I'm like, oh, I'll be the next, maybe I'll be the next kind. Doesn't mean it. What if I don't become the next kind? What if I don't have music that's doing? What if I don't become the next Jay? What if my daughter gets to see her dad living at his maximum potential, attempting to go out, and my daughter goes, oh, I can do it. Oh, man. or her friends or anyone else as she grows older, people who are able to be affected by that, of people just saying, I'm willing to try, willing to, when I step out, that vulnerability, that's scary, man. That vulnerability, that little space in between of willing to try. Everyone's willing to dream. I've met a lot of dreamers, and I'm a big dreamer myself. And in our group text, we have a group text that we have of a bunch of dreamers. I made that specific. It's dreamer to doer. It's the dreamer to doer like mastermind that we have in that text. Because for me, for years, I was always on the dream side, but I was way too afraid to try. Because that's where I went back to the kid. As you see, the theme in this whole thing is the kid who always felt stupid. And I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like people thinking I was dumb. I didn't like the feeling of people thinking I wasn't good enough. So I'd do anything to avoid that. And usually that came from just being the guy who makes jokes. So I would numb, I would try to make jokes, and I would make myself dumb in scenarios, knowing I'm reading, all of these books, but I'd make myself dumb because I was so afraid that, like, what if they're right? Now I'm like, nah, I'm willing to try. I would rather look dumb trying trying and being able to get close to God in that process, getting close to, potential of who God created me to be in that process. That's exciting. That makes life.
And this is why having a creative process, or I think podcasting, is very powerful as an avenue, because I believe in the healing power of creativity. But also I think that by sharing our voices and passions, it gives other permissions to pursue their passions and voices. It's a trickle effect, and you're truly having a domino effect in the most uplifting and positive way. And I think that's really, really powerful about that. So I just want to stay on this train real quick and double click on something. Soccer is a team sport. At the same time, your coach told you that you're the heartbeat of the rhythm, your heartbeat of this organism of the soccer team. So you're both dealing with the individual component, but also the collective team component. How does that translate to you as a musician now in the creative process? Because as an individual, you're the mastermind behind the lyrics, behind the harmony, the tempo, the alchemy of music and rhythms. At the same time, there is a team involved, manager, editor, producer, maybe you're a coach. So how do you see the similarities, and how has that soccer journey is continuing influencing you now as your musician?
That's what I love being on this podcast with you, is because you're able to connect things that I didn't even realize are connected. Oh my God. The team aspect that I've been able to learn from soccer and the human psychology that I was basically being taught that senior year is 100% the reason why I've been able to see even some of the semblances of success to this day. Because I can't produce. During that whole journey of music and stuff, when failing out of college and music school and stuff, I actually was like, I'm not good with a digital audio like workshop, the DAWs. I'm not good with them. Like, I can get in and record a little thing real quick, get it up, and then be done. But I'm not as great with it. And so if I sat down every single day and practiced, 100% I could get it. But to me, that's wasting precious time on what I really love, which is writing songs, creating songs, and also working with people. I love people. I don't do this to be alone. So one of the things me and one of the producers I met with this week we were talking about is how one of my superpowers is that I am not the smartest in the room when I get in with the producer. The producer trusts me to do me. I trust the producer to do the producer. And it's that human psychology of, like, again, this dance, the heartbeat, the rhythm, the leading. I come in there and I do what I do best. What I do best is I focus in, who's this producer? What's going on in their life? What should be celebrated in their personal life? What are the things that are going on with them? And the best artists will tell you, like, when they're creating these songs, they have incredible conversations beforehand, and then they write a song. So I'm sitting in the session and I'm booking out sessions for 5 hours, 6 hours. About an hour and a half of that is just us talking. That's it. It's about an hour of just like, yo, yeah, what's going on? Yo, that should be celebrated, bro. Oh, you're having a kid. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, these are the things you're struggling with. These are things you want. And me trying to fill up with love, with the readings, with everything else that I have, that I'm like, I don't have anything to give you on maybe on my connections or what. I might not have some, but can I give you what I've read? A book. I've bought books for my producers. I've sat down and shared with them things that I've read, podcasts, all of that stuff. And and some of them will leave and be like, dude, that inspired the shit out of me. Like, thank you. Cause I'm like, all right, this is what I can do. So I'm giving them my best in that moment. They're giving me their best, which in return, which will be really wanting to create an incredible song with me. And then I'm able to flow out the music. But it's like this back and forth versus some people will come into a studio and it's all about what you're giving me. Producer, you work for me. You work for me, producer. You're going to create my song. And it's one of those things that's unsaid, but you can sense, dude. You can it's one of those things where it's like you can sense when a person's in there for themselves or when they really are just like, both of us are gonna get gain from this. Both of us are gonna leave. Like one of the producers I came in and we already made some good songs, but I said, hey, let's both challenge ourselves. I'm gonna come in, I have this melody idea, and it sounds like a country song. I wrote it like a country song. I went like credit cards all pulled up, life's been on a decline, singing praise God. Like I wrote this thing and I said, let's take that, no chords to it, no nothing else, and let's create a song that we can see that could feel like Frank Ocean meets Bon Iver meets Kanye West. Let's try to create with that melody. And we did. It was like one of our favorite songs. We've shared it with so many different people because we just started putting all these elements and influences into it. Then we would change the vocals up completely and made some auto tune and made some like this. And to the point where like, this is weird, dude. And we send it to people and they're like, this is cool. And we're like, oh, sick. But it was the whole point was me and him to gain on a challenge because he's sitting there like, this is tough. You gave me a task that's not easy. And I'm like, I know this is tough for both of us. How the heck are we going to come up with something good? We left the first session and listened back and was like, this is terrible. We came back and did the second one and was like, I think we got it. But it took time. And now we have something together that we both are proud to show other people like, yo, check this. This was our process. This was the idea. But that's like human psychology. That's making something bigger than just Benjamin Carter walking in the studio. I catch my time a lot of times now, and I learned this from my wife, is saying we. Like last night I played a show and I was like, wow, I started saying we're really just working. And I was like, oh, I'm up here alone playing acoustic. And I was like, and I literally said, I mean, when I say we, I guess me. But I was like, I don't see this as just Benjamin Carter. I see this as the collective, the artists that I'm with, the producers I'm with, my manager, the creatives, the photographers, the videographers, like my family, my wife. Like I see it as we growing, we moving together, we balancing off each other, we doing these things together. And because I learned that from my wife, because when she started her company, one of the most powerful things she used to do. And at first I was like, is this a BS thing? Like, how is she doing this? She would always say, our company, we are what we do. And she would always say that. And I was like, it's just you right now, dude. She had no other contractors. She had nobody else she was working with, but she was always we. And then she got we. Then she started having employees. Then she started adding people. And I watched and I was like, oh, that's cool. I need a team. And last year, that's what I did. Last year, I just finally was like, I need a team. Said it out loud. And now I got too many people coming in. Like random people hitting me up, being like, hey, I want to run ads for you. Hey, I want to do this for you. And I'm like, I don't even know, man. Hey, I want to invest in this for you. Hey, I want to buy. Okay, like now I have a lead and this team is growing. But yeah, soccer is definitely like what I've learned. But soccer mixed with the leadership stuff. Again, I ended up taking a BS major from organizational leadership, but learning in Jim Collins' Good to Great what servant leadership was, and then taking 20 years of research to write this book, 12 years, I think, of research to write this book based on what they believe. They set a metric for what they believe the top leaders in companies did and what that would have to mean for their public, like their share prices and everything else over a certain amount of time. Like these had to be the results of these people. Each chapter goes through it, breaks down why these these companies, what is the trait among all of them that stays the same? That kind of stuff, I was like, that's what I'm bringing into the studio. It's because I'm like, that's why I'm so interested with this. I'm like, I can't do this on my own. If it was just up to me and I brought you a melody like that, the song's only going, it's one dimensional. It's not going anything else. It's me on an acoustic guitar and stuff. But I want to create the stuff I hear in a song. I want to create the stuff that I like imagined in my head, but I don't have those talents yet. I don't have that thing. I could work on it. Steve Jobs, not to compare myself to Steve Jobs, but that's someone who I would look up to where I'm like, this guy didn't really code. Like, he made all this stuff, like computers, iPhones, but this dude didn't know how to create a computer, but he created the computer. And I'm like, we all attribute all this to Steve Jobs, not to Wozniak, which is mind blowing to me because it came from out of Steve Jobs' imagination. It was his guidance, his belief in what he was creating, and able to inspire people, even though he hurt people along the way and stuff. And he had to learn from his own mistakes. He was able to inspire the people to partner alongside him to create what we know today as literally the first $1 trillion company.
He's also the first one to marry liberal arts with technology, right? I mean, obviously, on a personal level, there are flaws and issues, but on a creative level, he is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of the greatest innovators of ever. And yeah, I love that story, man. And I just want to highlight your genre you talked about when you first wrote down music and genre. You still weren't clear, right? Because we're talking about symphony. Because whether it's symphony in life or symphony of life, you need a composer to compose the music. Like as a chefs are the alchemist with alchemy of ingredients, and you as a musician, you're the alchemy of your thought process, your emotions into this harmonic masterpiece through the collective contributions and weaving with your team, producer, editor, etc. But your story about creating something new on a musical sonic level reminds me of Kid Cudi and Lil Nas. Kid Cudi, Man on the Moon will always be my favorite album. I pay homage to him for introducing me to hip hop when I first came to the US at age 15. So years ago now. But as you know, he was the first rapper to talk about vulnerability ever. Before that, nobody rapped about emotions. Nobody rapped about the street life. Nobody rapped about the hardened reality that these artists come from. And then now it's almost like you have to talk about certain emotions. You have to rap about some authentic part. Otherwise, who's going to listen to you? And Lil Nas, as a gay man, nobody thought he could do country. Oh, right? The song popped off and they just put him on the map. And I feel like we talked about this where we're truly being authentic. I do believe that the world gravitates towards us rather than us gravitating towards them. And that's a story I'm hyper aware. It's a story I'm telling myself because the tug of war between internal vision and the external dialogues, the chatter, the noises, it's very much real. That fuckery, it's real, right? So with that being said, I sort of mentioned this in the introductions. How do you describe your genre? How would you describe your music just sonically? Because it's so unique, and like I said, I love the song Psycho, just the lyrics, the realness you and just so groovy, but it's also very thought-provoking. So how would you describe to someone who is coming across your music for the first time? They're like, what is this?
Yeah, I would tell people, if someone was coming, I would tell them I'm a lyric guy first. So I would say, hey man, what you're about to experience, like, I'm a lyric guy. I'm a message guy. I'm all of that. And what sucks is that sometimes our lyric message guys aren't good at music. Or like their music doesn't, like, it's just like, that's corny, or yeah, believe in yourself. It's time to stay. Like, it's like, okay. And so I'm like, I was like, I don't want that. I don't want that to be what the kind of music I'm putting out, but I care about message a lot. My dad's a pastor, my grandpa's a pastor, my uncle is a pastor, they're all preachers. Like, I'm like, I want to bring preaching. I want to bring something to people. However, I don't want to be too preachy. It's like that balance. It's like I'm like not trying to be preachy, and I only got 2 minutes and 30 seconds or 3 minutes to like put an idea into your head. And so I would say like, hey, what you're listening to is you're listening to a lyric at first. And if you listen to a song, if you listen to Fragile but you don't listen to Psycho, you might miss the message. If you listen to Father Prayer but you don't listen to 17, you might miss the message. It's the catalog all together builds off each other to tell a story of a guy and his emotions and his feelings and his life. But it's like it's my little autobiography. You know what I mean? And so there's different chapters for different things. And I don't really focus as much on the sonics being cohesive because I'm a child of I'm a first generation kid of the internet. That's what I tell people. I'm like, no, I'm first generation. I'm YouTube was created and I'm the one in the Cayman Islands watching videos of anime in Japanese and being exposed to Japanese culture while speaking English while living in the Caribbean as a black kid. Like, what do you mean? When I think about it, I'm like, oh man, that's so cool that God was able to give me that experience. And so I definitely lyrics, man. Lyrics are a big part to me. Um, the story that I'm trying to tell people of my life of living, following your dreams, of of what happens along the way, of racial tension and racial reconciliation. I want to tell all of those things through the music, the nows, the past, the reflection on the future, all of it together. And I want to put it all in a song, in songs, in different formats. But sometimes they call for a different backtrack. You know what I mean? Like some songs call for something different. Sometimes they call for a different part of your voice. And I love that I have a song coming out called Hands Up, Don't Shoot because I listened to punk rock growing up and I listened to people screaming in songs growing up, but I just never did it. And then I got in the studio and was like, I want to try it. And so we got in and it's one of my favorite songs, man. And I'm screaming every time I see that look. Not like this at all. Staring at me like a crook. Hands up, don't shoot. Like, but I'm screaming that thing at the top of my lungs. I'm going, you're a killing machine. I'm just trying to breathe. I'm just trying to sleep. Get what you got up your sleeve. Like I'm just screaming it like a punk song. The song's just like, and I'm like, I cry my eyes out when I listen back to that song because it's one of the most vulnerable songs I have, but the backtrack, the way it's provided and handed to you, it doesn't seem like it would. This shouldn't be a vulnerable song. This should be a hard song. But I'm scared to death. Like that's the song. The song is me scared to death and screaming, "Hands up, don't shoot." So it's like I'll be driving in the car, I'll play it, choked up, tears rolling down my face, and I'm like, "Oh, this is the song that's gonna keep me playing music 40 years from now. It might not be the song that gets me a Grammy. You know what I mean? Like I don't know that, but I'm like, but 40 years from now, I'm playing this song at festivals, at shows, and people bring me out to play or whatever because I'm like, this song is vulnerability. This song helps people. It might take years for it to catch on, but I go, this is what the world needs more of. Not that I'm the only one bringing it, but we need more of vulnerability packaged in a way and to an audience that might not be looking for vulnerability in this style of song. And I think Kid Cudi did that perfect. It's like if you're listening to a song and you're listening to hip hop, you weren't looking for someone to talk to you about their anxiety, their depression they were going through. You were like, I was looking to be like, yo, I'm up in the club, but you listen to like Pursuit of Happiness, and it's like, dude, you were going through it. Like day and night. Oh, you're going through it. But then we'll add some day and night. I toss and turn, and it's like, oh no, you were going through it. It's like one of those things. And I didn't realize how much Kid Cudi really even inspired me. But for me, lyrically, like that's what I'm doing with a lot of my songs. So I'm providing you lyrics that you might sing on a song hyped. Lost Control is a song that I want people to sing hyped. Like, is this real? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me, what the hell am I really looking for? And then one day, just like, might be the 50th time you listen to it because it's fun. You might listen to it 50 times, but that 50th time, you're going to sit there and go, is this real? Tell me, what the hell am I looking for? If you're near, help me because I'm about to lose control. But the song's fun as hell, like you're screaming it. People will be like, is this real? Yeah, 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 yeah. Like it's like fun beat, like everyone's like having fun, but it's me putting in there, is this real? Is God real? Is all this happening? If you're near, if you're here, God, if somebody's here, if anyone can hear the sound of my voice, please help me. And I was at a hard place, but I wanted to put it in a song that was like not that at all. Like I wanted to put in a song that wasn't dressed up for sadness. So it's like the beginning starting with, I feel like I talk too much, like I'm always losing friends. It's like the beginning is like, this is sad, but you're kind of already brought into the beat, and then it's like, I'm sorry, I'll do better. Like it's the whole song is about, it feels so fun, but those lyrics are rich with, I need help, cry for help, and Kid Cudi does that, I think, so beautifully. And I think that's what I'm trying to attempt to do with my music is, can I provide something for people that they might listen to like 100 times, 50 times, or however many times, but on that one time they listen to it and decide to actually look at the lyrics, they go, frick, that got me, that impacted me. And Psycho's the same thing. Psycho's such a fun song, but that chorus is one of the hardest choruses I've ever written. I'm saying, let a nigga tell you what he's talking about. Caught up with emotion and I'm feeling with doubt. I'm feeling psycho. I'm so over chasing another stereotype, overdosing on opinions, and I'm losing my mind. I'm feeling psycho. Like those lyrics are there, but you listen to it, it's like, like it's like fun, but I'm like the whole time I'm being like, nah, like I want to bring something that's fun, but have people like on the 10th time listening go, let a nigga tell you. And like last night I played it, and I played it acoustic, and there was these black guys that were there. And these guys came up to me and they're just like, brother, let a nigga tell you what I'm talking about. And they were just so hyped. But this isn't something they, like a lot of guys like me were like told it was okay when we were kids to listen to. Got to listen to something hard, got to listen to something tough, got to be hip hop, got to be, but like now it's like an acoustic guy sometimes, or with a guitar and stuff, screaming to like some sort of like Princey, Maroon 5 type thing, but screaming out, let a nigga tell you what he's talking about. It's like, oh, okay. It gives voice to people who didn't have voice using a different avenue, and where the people that are going to listen to it most likely won't look like them, but they will hear their voice. And I think that's the chorus of the we. That's the chorus of what we're all singing now. And other people can do it and know that that guy doesn't look like me, but he's definitely freaking listening to what I have to say.
Yeah, music is truly universal. And dude, I just want to recognize, man, your ability to incorporate the macro, these really, really convoluted, difficult, complex, systematic issues, and package that through this personal vehicle. And of course, the packaging of funness, right? Because you got to hook them so they stay long enough on your train of journey, and then it clicks one day. The seed is planted, and you may not, as you said earlier, you may not always see the seed blossoming to something, but your job is done. The seed has already been planted on your end. It's really powerful, man, because I do think that the messaging board, just the motivation porn itself isn't enough, or motivation overload every single day. Whether it's podcasts, books, audio books, there's so many smart people out there. There's so many better podcasters out there, but all we can do is all we can do, right? So yeah. Zooming into what you said, Ben, how would you tell people, whether it's our age, maybe even older, maybe younger, regardless of their spectrum of age, how would you tell them? They're like, Ben, I want to be a singer-songwriter. I want to be a musician, but I can't. My dad's a pastor. Nobody in my family has done creative processes. My mom is an accountant. I don't know what else to do. I was never creative because you're a pastor's kid. You're the only PK, pastor's kid, that I know that's doing what you do. And you're so, so good at it. So for people that's listening, people who are grappled and just hindered and weighted down by all these thoughts and all these expectations, they're like, oh, I can't do what Ben does. There's no way. There's no way. What would you say?
First off, it's not gonna probably be. It might not be easy. That's one thing that, like, I've had some heart to heart, some tougher conversations with even my family, my dad and stuff. Because I remember, like, hey guys, I'm gonna be cussing. And like it's just gonna happen. And that was like a whoa, what the, and I don't know if they like that I cuss, but they support me. And I felt even more of that, not pressure, but like wanting to respect even my in-laws too. My in-laws are very much more conservative in that sense too, where I was just like, oh man, I'm connected to. It's not just about me, but they seem to be fine with it as well. And so I was like, okay, all right. So I was just testing waters, testing different things. I remember when I did Bad Habits, I didn't even say anything. I was like, smoking a cigarette in the video, and I was like, oh, my family's about to like kill me. They understood the art. They understood what I was saying. And I think first and foremost, I would say when you're doing this about yourself, people can tell. And so if you find yourself when you're being like, I'm going to do my music thing or whatever, I don't care what my family's going to say about it, I would just say, check yourself for a sec. Like, I've noticed now all the moments I was scared, my emotions were telling me not just that I was scared of maybe the affirmation thing. Like, definitely there was some of that, like, oh, I want my family to affirm me and be happy for me. But I also noticed that in a lot of it, I respected them. And to the point where, I mean, at one time I was, working for my dad at his church, uh, in front of 10 people on a Sunday, playing worship music, playing stuff. And I think that season of life, and plus the seasons of life I've had to go through with my wife and her family, have shown them who I am as a man, as Benjamin Carter, that they trust me. They trust me with their daughter. They trust me with my daughter. So if you see family freaking out, they might not be able to voice it because they might not know. Some people just suck. I will also just throw that in there. Some people are only concerned about themselves. So your family members, you could be showing that you love them, and they could just be like, no, and that's a different thing. But at least in my scenario, they love me, they care about me, and they know I love and care about them and my wife and my daughter. That I've been able to pursue this thing with support from people who I never thought would support me. Pastors, who are helping me and giving me money because they believe in what I'm doing. They're just like, oh man, like, how can we partner alongside and help you? And I'm like, you realize in the song I'm about to say, let a nigga tell you what I'm talking about. Like, that's not really like church, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, that, I don't know, like, some of the messages might not be here. And Lost Control, it's gonna be spooky. I have like these weird music videos, like me with purple eyes, and like it feels like haunted house. I'm like, people might be like, this is demonic. But I'm like pushing these boundaries really hard, because that's part of my story. And I didn't really want to talk about my religious story and my background, because I was like, Christianity has a bad rep. So I've always kind of wanted to stay out of it. You know what I mean? But I'm like, but I can't get rid of it because it's authentic to me. I'm a third generation, pastor's kid. Like, I'm part of all this stuff. I'm like, I gotta talk about it. And the more I've talked about it and allowed it to flow through, most people are like, oh, that's cool, man. And those who don't think it's cool, they haven't said anything, so it doesn't really matter. But I think it's like, step out, do your thing, try. And when you're trying, make sure you're trying for something more than yourself, more than just a couple thousand likes on IG, or more than just a viral video, more than just, your family, more for your family. Like, it's your family, it's the other generations, it's future kids, it's loved ones, it's inspiring other people to be able to do their journey. It's being able to say like, all right, if I am a famous artist, at least maybe the symbolism that I when people see it, they can see. If I wanted people to see it, I'd want them to see a word that says dreamer, encourager, inspired. Like that's what I want. Like Benjamin Carter goes away. I want them to just know those words and then take those on, plant those seeds, and they can take those and use them for future generations, and they can forget about me. But if I can give them dreamer, inspirer, and they can be like, now I'm going to be a dreamer. Now I'm going to be the inspiration. Now I'm going to be. I think those are the things, and those are my words. Like you don't have to have those words, but those words, figure out what those words are for yourself. And I think like, again, that kind of goes back to what we talked at the beginning: mindfulness, mindset, all of that, and then try. Okay, that didn't work. Mindfulness allows you to kind of watch and govern those things. Try this mindset, try this way, try. Okay, back again. Look at myself. It's like that circle and that cycle. And I think we have to be okay with doing that. And I think any young artist, including myself, that was me for a long time, is just really focused on. When I started, success leaves clues. When I started, I wasn't doing this for myself at all. And I watched exponential results really fast. And I just wanted to put out a song. My wife had lost her job at the time. I was with my dad in DC, leading worship for like 10 people on Sundays, working at my full-time job during the week. But I just was like, I just want to put out one song because I really care about this thing. And I wanted to talk about an idea, Hills. I'm wanting to fucking cry right now even talking about it. But Hills, my first song that I wrote, was about my cleaning staff. I worked at WeWork, and there were cleaning staff there. And it was their stories that inspired me so much that I wrote a song about it. It's like, this got to be the first song I record. It wasn't even about me. It wasn't even about my story. And a lot of other stuff's about my story. It's about me. But it's still about how can this benefit other people? And that could be, I told someone the other day, I was like, it don't have to be that deep for you. Like, you could be a jazz musician. You could be like, these chords. But if the chords that you're playing aren't about how it's going to change maybe the next generation of how they hear music and hear notes and hear those things, or it's not going to be about how the 3 or 4 people who told you, no, those chords don't play together well, but you're showing, yes, they do. Check this out. Like, oh, I'm going to write a song with this idea. Like, it's got to be about more than just, can I get instant gratification? Can I get the likes? Can I get the bends? Can I get those things? Dope. Like, success leaves clues, man. And I've noticed, at least for myself, like I'm seeing exponential results. Not ran into a brick wall, another brick wall, another brick wall, another brick wall. And then I finally got it, because I think you can do that. If you do it for yourself, you can do it. It's just physics. It's Newtonian physics. Just grab momentum, keep going, I think you can still achieve it. You just might not be able to sustain it. You might be burnt out by the time you get there. I'm not telling you this is the only way to get what you want. I'm telling you this is a beautiful way to sustain.
So how would you balance between absolute, uncompromised personal satisfaction and service? Yeah, because I sense a lot of the theme and the ethos of service, and of course you said it so beautifully that when we do it for larger than us, larger than me, look at me, cosmos and universe and God tend to respond well to that intention. But at the same time, as a creative, especially someone that's not just up and coming, but very established, you're so passionate and you have this vision you want to live out of, because you are the conduit, you are the vehicle of your stories. But then you have this underlying theme of the service. So interesting to see how you would balance that, or show people how you would personally balance it.
I think I would just say the word balance is tough for me in general, because I'm more focused on moving forward than being balanced, meaning I picture life as like bowling with the gutters up, and being humble enough to say, I need the gutters, I need the bumpers, up. I don't need gutters anymore. I need the bumpers up. I'm humble enough to say I need bumpers in my life and bowl that joint. It might smack the shit out of one side and then go to the other end and smack the shit out of the other side. But you know what's happening the whole time? It's gonna go towards those pins. You might only knock a couple of them because your technique was bad. You might knock more because your technique was better, but you went forward. And so balance to me is that, and when I picture it in my head, so I think there is no clear line between the two of like how to get the perfect balance. But I do believe as creatives, we do have to say there is those moments where you have to find what is true to yourself and say, hey, this is the story that I am going to tell. And I'm being told this is stupid by like 6 people. But because of my practices, because of my mindfulness, because I'm self aware, I know this is the story that I truly believe in that is going to help other people. You know, it's like I can't change. Like someone this week told me to change a song because they didn't like the song. And they were like, you should scrap it. But I like it. And then I was like, all right, well, I really like it. And then I was like, maybe I'm crazy. Let's be humble enough to say, this could be a bad song, but I like it. Let me ask around some people's opinions who I value. Ask my wife, she didn't like it. Ask my manager, he liked it. Random person out of nowhere texts me, says they really like it. And so I go, I'm gonna keep this song. The message I put in that song mattered to me. And so I was like, and I liked how the ebbs and flows of the influences in the song. It's not for everybody, but it's for some. And as long as I can see that it's for some, I'm willing to try, you know, and I'm willing to get the people to be like, you're trash. I think part of it is like, I've been made fun of and called dumb and stupid for so much of my life that like the day an article now comes out and be like, Benjamin Carter's new song is terrible, I probably am just gonna laugh because it's like it's not the first time I heard that shit. Like, like, and last year, I was telling someone this last night. Uh, but yes, all that to say, I would say find the balance through trying. Just go forward. Stick to what you believe if it can help some. Stick to what you believe if it can help some. But last night I told someone last year, one of the best things I ever did is I let the TED talk about the guy who did the rejection challenge for 100 days or something. I don't know if you've seen that, but he put himself through 100 days of rejection. I was like, I'm soft. I'm way too fragile. I put it in a song. I named this song Fragile. I need to get a little tougher because this thing, people are going to say they hate my songs. They're going to say it. And I need to be able to be okay with it and not destroy myself over it and beat myself up over it. All right, so I started just sending demos. I was like, I'm gonna ruin some relationships here. There's some A&Rs, there's some people that I'm sending music to that they're gonna be like, we hate this Benjamin Carter guy. He keeps sending us messages. But I was like, but this is for me. I was like, I was a little selfish. I was like, I need you to not respond. I need you to reject my thing. I need you to tell me I don't like it. Or to tell me you do like it. But the fear of rejection is really what mattered. It wasn't really that they were going to reject me. It was the fear of rejection to not even try. So I just started sending demos and stuff last year. Some people never responded. Some people gave great feedback. Some people hated it. But it got me to this place where now this year I just laugh. Like, I really like it. That could be crazy, but I mess with it. One person told me it really helped them. So if there's one, where there's one, there could be more. Let's try to find it. I'm fine with my entire audience being in Mozambique. I'm fine with the fans of that song being in one country, one tiny island, one tiny place, but all of them mess with it, and it's only that one song that's messed with over there. Cool, but I want to find them. I want to find that group of people that are like, we love this, and this speaks to us and what we're going through. I'm not as concerned of if it's the whole world or if it's a Grammy nominated specific. I'm just not as concerned with that. I'm like, if I can find one, there's many. If I can find one, I just gotta find them. And there's 7 billion people in the world, and that's intriguing. That keeps keeps this game fun. I was like, we'll find them. We'll figure it out. It might take 3 years, 4 years, but if there's one person that messes with this song, there's at least a couple more.
It's like one for all and all for one, right? Yeah. And I also sense a lot of the power of surrender. And I really appreciate, before I continue, that it's not always, of course, by the way, all these questions to someone, listeners out there that's first to this channel and this show, it's unscripted. So I really appreciate you sharing your real answer, because not everything has a blueprint and not everything's meticulously laid out. Oh, balance. I have this perfect, I have this blocks. It's life, And like I said, balance looks different for everyone. So I think having this perception of one size fits all work-life balance is a huge disservice. Some people need 4 hours of sleep. Some people need 9. Everyone has different needs and demands and circumstances, privileges, oppression, etc. What I wanted to talk about is the power of surrender that I sensed in your story. Is when surrender gets a bad rap, like detachment in Buddhist philosophy, people are like, oh, surrendering, that means you're giving up. You're not surrendering. You're surrendering to a higher being after you've already worked with what you can control, because you cannot control or exert influence in life, but you can insert a certain control in certain domains of life, whether it's work ethics, waking up, do your self-care routine, make sure you're in the right headspace, etc. At the same time, you have to know your limits and surrender for the greater good. That's how you make sure your mental health is not at the cost of what you do. So I just want to bring that with you, because there's a story you shared with me where it speaks to the serendipitous power of life, but also the synchronicity of life. Once you had the right intention, once you did everything you possibly could with your fiance or your girlfriend at the time, right? And then through surrendering, God answered your call through this miraculous outcome. And as you know, I got full goosebumps when you share that story, and I just want to create an opportunity for you to share and just talk about the power of surrender in that specific moment and how synchronistic life became immediately 24 hours later.
Yeah, say this before preference is I'm blessed with the greatest family on earth, but I'm blessed with an incredible family. And so when my wife and I started dating, unfortunately at the time, due to my wife's Brazilian, and her mom moved to the U.S. When she was young, and got remarried, and married the man she's with today, and they both lived in Alabama, South Carolina, back to Alabama, where they are now, and um, due to where they live, due to how life looks around them, a guy like me, I'm black for those who aren't looking. Guy like me wasn't necessarily what they had anticipated. And so they were not for our relationship. And that caused a lot of issues, a lot of ups and downs, for about 2 and 3 years. I won't go into all the details, but things got really rough. At one point, I just broke up with her because I was so beaten. I just was like, this is just never gonna happen. Like, I can't get our parents to like me. She moved to LA, and I was like, she's gonna find some other guy, lighter skinned, and he's gonna be the perfect thing, for the family. I was like, I know I'm a good dude, but there's gonna be another dude, and he's just a little lighter skinned, who's the exact same version of me, and he's gonna be perfect for everybody. And so I was like, I give up. I eventually called her back. We got back together. And after around 6, 7 months, I was like, nah, I was dumb. I need you. And so I called her back, came out to LA, won her back. And eventually was like, hey, I was in DC, at the time, but I was like, while she was still in LA, and I was like, I got proposed to this girl. Like, been through so much. Like, I know she's it for me. I was like, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life. Like, it's been a tough 2 or 3 years, but this person I spend the rest of my life with. So I call her, and I buy the ring, I call her up. We had already kind of been talking about the idea of what happens if I were gonna, propose to her. So I was making a joke on the phone, and I go, "Yo, that day I call your parents up, I'm gonna call them up, and I'm gonna be like, hey, can I have, your daughter's hand in marriage?" And they were like, she was like, I was like, they're gonna freak out. I was like, they're gonna lose their minds completely. And she was like, don't say that. And I was like, dude, I'm judging off the last 24 hours. Didn't you just get into an argument with your parents about something small? Like, I was like, if that was a small thing, this is a black thing. It's a different. And I was like, it's just going to be worse. And she was just like, I was like, this is different. And she was just like, don't. I was like, I'm judging off the last 24 hours. She says, don't do that. And out of nowhere, she to this day is like, I don't know where that came from. She said, you never know what God can do in 24 hours. And I was like, okay. And 24 hours later, I'm like working at a coffee shop at the time, trying to get a full-time job so I can be like the man. So that I can, honestly, I was like, maybe I can, when I call them up, if I have a full-time job, then they'll accept me. Like everything in my mind was like, what can I do to prove that I'm worthy? And I get a call from her, and she's bawling her eyes out, like hysterical crying, like can't speak. And I'm like, what's going on? You good? And she's like, my mom just called out of nowhere and just said, hey, we're sorry for everything we've done to you and Ben. I know you guys are back together, and just want to let you know that we're sorry. We love you guys. If you guys were ever to get married, we want you to know we pay for the wedding. And I'm like, what the? Like, nah, this is a joke. So then I go and I talk to, like, they text me same day, and they go, hey, we'd love to have a conversation with you. And I was like, oh, okay, but this is all theoretical. When we have this conversation, it's gonna go bad. Like that's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, they think theoretically I could want to marry her, but I already have a ring. This is happening. I was like, this is happening in 3 weeks. I was like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this? And I'm on the phone with them. They're talking to me, and they're like, if you ever want to marry our daughter, we just want to let you know that we would love that. You are a good man. And I was like, all right, well, I'm actually planning on proposing to her in 3 weeks. I have the ring on November 22nd. They go, could we be there? And I'm like, what? And I like kind of just stop, and I'm like, yeah. And so the photo of Yaz and me proposing to her, I still don't remember what I said. I don't think I said anything. I don't think anything happened, because when she got upstairs and she was on this rooftop and we had all these balloons and our like everything like saying marry me. She got up to the rooftop. Her mom popped out behind the balloon. Shoot, I'm about to cry. Her mom pops out behind the balloon and she says, and all I hear is my wife say, is that my mom? And she says, is that my mom? And she just loses it, just starts crying. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I did the greatest proposal in the world. And I'm just like, how did this happen? How did we get to this place where my, I couldn't have done anything different. There was moments in between that I look back and I go, oh, we should have been kinder. We shouldn't have sent those texts that were really rude and hurt each other and hurt her parents or hurt anybody else in the process. But when we kind of let go, and this is the message no one wants to hear on racial reconciliation. Like, this is stupid. Like, everyone would be like, nah, dude, like, we got to do some stuff. And I'm like, I'm not saying don't do anything. Me and her, the doing was staying together. What do you mean? Of course, there was something to do. If we hadn't stayed together, none of this happens. So there is a doing that happened. We stayed together against all odds, against everything else that was coming up against each other. Even when we broke up, we came back together because we're like, this has got to happen, irregardless of whether or not people love us, hate us. That's what you do, is you stay with it. But no amount of yelling, no amount of being rude, no amount of arguing, no amount of, tearing them down benefited us at all in the end. The only thing that benefited us in that moment, like the only thing, was this incredible God moment where all of a sudden 24 hours later, like that, everything's good. Now they're just in-laws. Now we have like in-law problems and stuff. And I'm like normal things where you're like, those are my in-laws. Like we'll have normal things. And even then, like they're incredible. I love them. And I know with that same ferocious passion they had, that they've now moved and transmuted out towards not me being with them, they will, I say this not in a like a legally binding way, but they would kill somebody for my daughter.
Just to clarify,
Like,
there's
like,
no intent of homicide in this
there's
discussion.
no intent of actual killing, but they love me and they love my daughter with that same passion. That's all I could ask for. So I'm like, if other people are like, I'd still hold on, I'd still hold a grudge, I'm like, nah, dude. Like, I want those guys on my side now. Like, I want, like, when something happens to my daughter, I want those guys on my team, and they are on my team now. I can wipe everything else away and say, hey, we're good. Because now who just joined the team are people who are passionate, who care, who really, really believe. They might have believed the wrong thing, but they've now switched. And now they take that same passion, that same care towards, hey, what'd you say about my daughter? What'd you say about my granddaughter? What'd you say about my son-in-law? What'd you? Now it's like, now I got the people on my team who are like, nah, we will shut down anything that comes against our son-in-law, who looks drastically different than us, but is part of us. So I'm like, that's the racial reconciliation story that's like not necessarily always talked about, not always praised, but it's one of those things for me that it's like, I find it beautiful, man. And where there's one, there can be many. And so I just really, really believe that their success leaves clues, man. There's something there. If we can keep dissecting it, maybe we can figure out how to replicate that in a larger form and reconcile racial relationships.
That's amazing. And also, I just want to highlight what you just said. Reconciliation and the process of reconciling with whatever looks different for every single person. We need more nuances. That's why we do long form conversations, because I think the essence of life is in nuances. And man, what a freaking amazing story. And you're exactly right. It's not just luck. It's not just serendipity. It's not just chance. It's you've done the hardest part, which is the commitment of endurance in a very, very tumultuous, right, relationship, because of the racial components, because of different environments. As you said, we are the byproduct of our environments, not necessarily who we are. And of course, like Alabama, of course, those are very particular areas. But then after you did the doing, it was a being. It's like be, do, have. You need all three of them. You cannot just be being. We see all these hippies and all these really, really enlightened folks, and they're so open, they're so amazing people, and they have this love for all mindset, the philosophy of oneness. But then it's like their plane took off, but it never landed, because they only remember the being part. They forgot about the meat suit, the human aspect of human being. You need both. Likewise, you cannot just do. That's external. That's you're attaching your worthiness to doing, to productivity, which is capitalistic America does it so well, is you're only worthy if you're producing. Never forget that. And we need to unlearn that. At the same time, you also need to be. You have to be with it to truly receive the lessons as you have. But that is a miracle. And I really, really hope that people can take a moment and just sip on that story, because it is so deep. The intricacies, the emotionality, just seeing you tearing up almost brought a tear to my eyes too. You've attributed a lot of your success and a lot of what you do now to your wife and amazing partner, Yasmin. Likewise, I just want to uphold our partners, because I don't think men do that enough, right? And we talk about this a lot with even really, really successful people like Winston Churchill. He always talks about in his book and his autobiography that without his wife, he would not have become the prime minister. When he was pulled back in to lead the country in the most turmoil states, historically speaking, he didn't want to do it. his wife nudged him, and his wife said, "Hey, you do your calling, I'll take care of what's at home." And I sense that from your story. I sense that in my story with my partner. So with that, I just want to take a slight pivot into your family aspect, your own family, which is your child, right? You as a father.
Mhm.
What does fatherhood mean to you? And this is a personal curiosity. Did you cry when you first held your daughter in your arms?
No, not at all. I did not cry mainly because things were not going well in the hospital. And when my wife was giving birth, and so it was like an emergency C-section. Um, my daughter came out with a fever, and she's, and that's kind of, my wife had a fever at the time. So those are like kind of normal things, but like, my wife is like kind of going into this weird like shock on the table. And like she's drugged up so much. She's like eyes are opening and closing. She's like not even there. And then going into this weird like kind of shock thing that I'm sitting there like I'm holding my daughter, and I like one day I'll tell her the story and we'll laugh. But when I looked at my daughter, I'm like, dude, we just met. But the girl over there, I'm like, but the girl sitting over there is dying. Like, what am I supposed to do? So it was this moment, and the doctors weren't helping. I guess they've seen everything, so they're playing Selena Gomez in the operating room. They're playing "I Needed to Lose You to Love Me, to love," and I'm sitting there like, I don't need to lose nobody. Why is the song playing right now? And why are you guys dancing around to Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez when we could be over here saving my daughter and my wife's life? But they're just vibing. They're hanging. They're doing the thing. They're stitching her back up, and I'm going, everyone's dying. So it wasn't a great moment for me. So no, I did not cry. But I've cried a lot since, for sure. But I didn't cry in the moment. And I can't wait to tell her that story and her just be like, I'll probably tell that at like a future wedding or something. And I just be like, shut up. I'm like, dude, we just met. Um, but now I think fatherhood for me, man, fatherhood for me is everything. If anything, I've had to teach myself to be a better husband for sure. Like I've had to, but since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a dad. I just always wanted to be a dad because I had a really good dad. I still have a really good dad. Um, there was a moment when I was a kid that I remember. This is crazy. I'm laying in bed, in a bunk bed. My dad would go to the church almost every Tuesday morning at like 4:35 a.m. and go pray in the church. And I would like sneak with him a couple times. I'd hop out of the bunk bed, be like, "Come on, can I go?" He'd be like, "Yeah, come on." And I'd go with him a couple times to go just pray at the church. And he would pray, and I would be like, "God," it's just I'd be asleep in a pew, man. But I just wanted to be with my dad. But I remember one moment, I'm laying in the bunk bed, and I hear my dad's keys jingling outside the door, and I just remember like praying to God and saying, "It's not fair. It's not fair that you gave me a dad who's secretly an angel, but you plan on taking him away from me because angels can't stay on earth forever." And I thought my dad was perfect, like absolutely perfect. I was like, dude. And my mom, every time I tell the story, my mom's always like, "Oh, okay, but I was a shit mom." I'm like, "Nah, that's not it. It's just like, just things were different." But it's like my mom. I talk to my mom more than I talk to my dad. I share more with my mom than I do my dad, actually. But there's with my dad, it's just like I never saw him raise his voice, like unless it was like at me, like because I was doing some stupid thing, and it was even then, it was never really out of anger. It was always like, "Hey, we don't do this. Hey, that's spankings." I know people hate like talking about disciplinary action spankings, but I'm like, dude, I got the best spankings in the world. I'd get spanked. I get told this is why we're gonna have this, okay? Spank, 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 spank. Me crying my eyes out. Come on. Hey, do we know why this happened? I want to make sure this doesn't happen again. I need you to do. Yes, sir. It was like most people hate spankings because it's like you're just walking up to a kid and just hitting them and saying, "Don't do that." Okay, like affirming, like, I do this, I get smacked. Me, it was like, talk, this, talk. And then by the time I got old enough where the hitting just didn't even matter, the spanking didn't matter, it was still talk, take this away from you, you're grounded, talk. You know, it was like very much like we always had these good, like it was very composed, it was very calm, it was very like that. And I just always was like really admired how my dad was and how strong he was. Like we went through some crap, man. Went through some crap. Like, and I watched my dad go through some stuff. And always stay so composed that like by the time when I started working on the gym in high school, or in high school, in college, I remember being in college, like lifting, and there'd be nights where the only way I could lift was I'd be like, if you want to be, literally, I would tell myself this, like, if you want to be a good dad, you want to be a strong dad one day you're going to be going through some crap. Who says you'll be able to do the things that you said you're going to be able to do for your family if you can't lift this weight? Like that's what I'm telling myself in my brain, because it was like, you go to the gym because if you want to be able to be a good dad, you need to be able to handle these situations. You need to be able to stay composed. You need to be able to be that type of guy. But if you can't do this, if you can't show up here in the gym, you're not going to be able to do it then. And I was like, that's how I was like going to the gym for years. Now I do a little less of that. But I don't know why. I just kind of was like, this is a lot. But for years, that's kind of how I was, because I was just kept thinking of like my dad, almost dying in a train car fire and then preaching the same weekend. My dad going through this crazy car accident, but believing God was going to give them a car. My dad and getting someone randomly giving them a car, and he just stayed consistent. He came there to build this church. He could have left. He could have gone somewhere else and got a different job. We were doing really well in Cayman. Like everything was fine, but he was like, I'm called here. I'm supposed to stay here. Called here. I'm supposed to stay here. We're going to figure it out. Like fatherhood for me is like, it is completely focused on just kind of like emulating some of those attributes I saw in my own dad, my grandpa. Like, those guys I saw some great men be great men, and I always wanted to just be that. As a dad, I just want to be the guy who my daughter's like, I can count on him. Like, he loves me. I've seen unconditional love my whole life. I can try. I can step out. I've seen that. That's all I want.
Yeah, it sounds like you come from a lineage of gray men. And dude, gray men are so freaking scarce in 2022. Man, like gray men are scarce. Gray men is a dying breed. And I really respect how the mannerism, your attitude, how you describe your father, your grandfather, your uncle. Because I feel like a lot of people now are ashamed of where they came from, are ashamed of their tribe, are ashamed of their lineage because of cultural assimilations and different systematic issues, whatnot. But I love you're so grounded. And I could see how great your father is and your mother just from you, because you are the embodiment of their parenting, of their philosophy, of their views. And I do, Ben, I love the way you view the world. You're so intentional, and you have this very constructive way of trying to discern whenever you can and dissect whenever you can and to integrate those distilled insights. So on that end, I have a question for you. I know that we talked about the drive I had with the workout, the military, the whole thing was because I used to be chubby. Same thing. There's always that little insufficiency that's driving us forward. But then, of course, you unlearn that, you get to know yourself better, and then you take away the strength from that attribute because it's not all bad. At the same time, you also talked about, because you always were called dumb, all these false labeling that gave you this motivation. And right now, a lot of your success of life, I don't define success as financially. I define success as, are you happy? Are you ambitious? Are you showing up to the people you love? And are you doing something that you love? You check all those boxes. So I know you and I, we both read Will Smith's book, right? Will Smith with Mark Manson. And just for the listeners, this was pre-slap era. I bought the book and I finished the book before the slap incident. So this is not related to the slap.
The week before the slap, I finished the book.
Yes. So this was all pre-slap, just making known to the listeners. But Will Smith and Mark Manson talk about life is like school, but the opposite. In school, they give you the lessons and you prepare for the test. In life, they give you the test, and then it's our individual responsibility to derive the lessons so we can avoid eating the same shit the next time and just get better at dealing with the currents of life. So it's very different how school system works and how life works. I met many creatives and artists and musicians like yourself, and they actually all struggled in school, yet they are thriving in the container of life. Do you have any thoughts on that? You ever thought about why that is?
There's a lot, and I think to that question, because I have some friends who did really well in school, um, and they're doing solid, and they're creatives, but they're not doing as well in their creative craft because the one thing that school taught them, even though they're really good at their craft, so they're really good at their craft, just like they'd be really good at school, but they're not really good at this journey of entrepreneurship, pursuing a dream, because it's not easily metric. It's not easily gradable. And so I think they struggle more than I do on this unknown um, world that, like, not sure what's going to happen next, versus they're like really good at their craft because it was A plus B equals C. Practice these notes, practice this thing, practice these methods, get good. Now I'm really good. Shouldn't I be famous? And it's like, well, like, and I think that was the hardest thing going to music school too, and just chatting with people, in music school, people got there was everyone was better than me, like everyone was talented and could do all these things. I showed up in college, I couldn't even harmonize. I was like, oh shoot, there's people that are really good, and I was like, I don't know what to do, and so I've had a lot of uncertainty in a lot of areas from financial, me sharing just even a little bit about my family, where we lived, and the things that were going on, but like my dad and parents living in that basement, that same basement my parents were living in was the basement I learned how to play soccer, and it had those exponential results in my life. Like, I see that season as this beautiful season, but they might see that season as the toughest season of their life. I'm like, that was definitely different than where I'm living now, but man, did I grow. Man, was I able to, like, these awesome moments of believing I could actually be the next Pele happened in that basement. That's cool, So I think there's just always been this sort of uncertainty, in a lot of places. But because there's been uncertainty, I've been able to see crazy results a lot. There's a story that in the Bible that's one of my favorite stories, and it's Elijah and the prophets of Baal. And the prophets of Baal are like, our God's going to bring down fire, and he doesn't. And then Elijah comes together and goes, my God's going to bring down fire, but let's put some water around the altar. Okay, actually do it again, just to really press into the fact that, like, his God was going to show up and you weren't going to be able to deny it. But also, he made it really hard, quote unquote, hard on God. Not actually, because it's God. But to everybody else looking around, they're like, dude, they're gonna kill you if this fire doesn't come down. That to me is like, so other people would say, oh, that's a gamble, Ben. Don't live like that life in a gamble. I'm like, it's not a gamble when when it's trust, when it's faith. It's not a gamble. It's just like, I might not happen the way I think it's gonna happen, but it's going to happen. I have to have the faith. And so I'm okay with that. And most people, because it doesn't happen the way they wanted it to happen or when they want it to happen, now everything's cut out. It's completely thrown out in the garbage. Especially when you're living your life on that school system. It doesn't happen the way you thought it was going to happen in the way that it was set out in the exact steps. Then it must not work. And it's like, the school of life just doesn't work that way. It happens in all these different synchronistic events and these weird things, and you learn that you get the test first and then you get the lesson, and now you've gained. So I've had to teach my whole mindset. Bible says, um, and this is for anyone who doesn't even believe in the Bible. I'll say this, like, I quote the Bible a lot, but not just because I believe in it. There's so much wisdom literature. I've heard people who aren't Christians, they quote the Bible and they're like, oh, it's wisdom literature to them. I'm like, dude, just go read it. Like, if you don't want to believe what I believe, I don't care. But read those stories and read the things. Like you can take a lot of philosophical wisdom. Book of James talks about, says, consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because it's then that you develop perseverance. And with perseverance, once builds up, makes you perfect, complete, and lacking in nothing. And for me, for a lot of part of my life, not having money, I always kept going to that emotion of lack. I always felt like I was lacking. But now I can look and see that verse and I go, I get it now. Even when even when I fail, I'm abundant because I just gained. So now I like literally, to put this practical, someone told me these things about myself, that I wouldn't be this artist, that I was going to be the artist that no one knew about in like 10 years, but like I was going to be involved with some of the biggest artists in the world, but like no one's going to know who I was. Like I'm just that kind of guy. Like I'm not going to be famous, but like some people will know, and they were kind of like insulting me, but they're like, yeah, but you're a good guy, dude. You'll be in all those rooms. And I was just like, I went for a drive afterwards and I was like, imagined myself being on Breakfast Club or here. This is the first podcast I'm on, but I imagined myself on that drive, imagining Breakfast Club and telling that story of like, oh, someone told me that this song was never going to be, oh, this person told me that they didn't like that. Oh, this person told me that. You just gave me something. You gave me fuel. You gave me ammunition. You gave me a story. All the basement was a story. I was always being given something. So now, anytime things are happening that are bad, what the hurricane that ripped off the roof of my, threw me out of my own country and I had to move to the US. I almost died at one point in that whole thing. My dad's literally saved my life. I have stories, which means that I was given something. And I think if we can help people understand you are always being given something, now I'm becoming perfect, complete, and lacking in nothing. Now I can be joyful all the time, because why not to say happy, but joy. Like, man, that might be tough, but bruh, the story I have, the story of my wife's family, I gained. You can't tell me I lost. I gained.
And I think the two ubiquitous ingredients across any form or slices of success is humility and curiosity. I had this giant epiphany last year that, to be curious, you have to be humble. Because without being humble, you don't have the desire to be curious, to ask a question. For me to ask you a question, Ben, that means internally I must accept that you have something to say, that I want to listen. And I like to take this moment for all the listeners listening. Just take a moment and pause and reflect. When was the last time you asked a question to someone that's maybe younger than you are, or maybe you self-perceive as less important or prestigious, or you quote unquote, air quote, respect less? And think about, why do I not want to ask that person questions? Oh, I don't think they have anything to say. But then you have to check that metacognitively, because everyone has something to say. Like the Bible says, right? Be empty and just let God flow through you. Once again, it sounds simple, but that is hard AF, right? I'm still grappling with that. Just let God flow through me. Just be the vehicle for that. But speaking of embracing and embodiment, we're definitely coming towards the end of the episode. I want to hit you up with the 2 signature questions that we conclude the episode with. As you talked about one for many, one for all, and you talked about there are many different lanes of truth, lanes of experiences, lanes of pathways based on who you are, where you came from, what your visions are, X, Y, and Z. To everyone that's listening to this amazingly insightful conversation with you, Ben, and they're all grappling with different circumstances, different pressure, different internal chatter, external chatter. They don't really believe in self. Maybe they don't have the supportive system that you have. Maybe they don't have a tribe to help ground them the way we have, because I have an amazing tribe behind me as well. So to those people who need this voice from you, what sort of mentorship advice and program would you create to instill some philosophy and lessons and insights from your life to tell these younger folks, older folks who want to make something for themselves like you, live out the vision they have, but nobody believes in them? What would you say?
I have written on my phone, um, my kind of like part of my mission in life is to dream, try, and to pray, and to inspire others to dream, try, and and I think I really believe that it's when we dream that we unlock our imagination and limitless possibilities that God created in us to be. But it's when we try that we begin to step out and have to trust. It's when we begin to trust that we find ourselves happy. And I believe that's what we're created to do. And I believe when you're doing that, any avenue, you're going to find yourself in this fun spot where you're like, okay, okay, all right, but I'm moving forward. Again, the analogy of the bowling with the gutters up or the bumpers up. Dude, just let down your pride, man. Bowl with the bumpers up. You want a gutter ball and hit nothing, or you want to get one? It's really easy to figure out why you were going that way and going right, but I don't got time to go gutter ball. I gotta hit one. I gotta hit at least one. I can't gutter this thing, man. So let's put up some bumpers in our lives, some tools. Let's meditate. Let's read. Let's pray. Let's get some good people around us. Let's get groups. Let's start group text the dreamers to doers mastermind. Let's do those things. Let's try. Freaking put ourselves out there. Let's try and set that up. Because if I can get one, all right, okay, I know I'm on the right path. You know. So anybody who's in that, my big thing would be to dream, try, and pray. Whether that's you praying to my God, you want to talk to the universe, I don't care. Like I just don't care. Um, and I don't know if that's the right Christian answer. Just don't. It doesn't matter to me. I want you to dream, try, and pray. I want you to put yourself out there. I want you to talk to God. I want you to fail. I want you to talk again. I want you to do it again because this is why I can't quit. It's the biggest reason why I can't quit music. I told someone that the other day. They asked me, I said, dude, music is just the chisel God has given me. That's the tool that He's using to chisel the shit out. It's just it, man. It's not like I was like, I love music, but this journey I've been on, oh, the moment music is less than me being able to learn or gain anything from this journey, I'll stop and do something else. I mean that sincere. Like, if the moment it's not about me learning and discovering and trying and picking out the synchronicity. Like last night, I have this little creed that I say now before I do shows and when I wake up in the morning. That like a mentor of mine, I like asked for mentorship and I got this mentor in my life. And he gave me this what he does for a creed, and I created my own creed. And in it, I say like I'm unlimited, I'm abundant, I'm creative, and I'm ready to inspire all those I encounter today. And I say it before shows. And I forget sometimes that when I'm saying it, that I want someone to come afterwards and use the word inspire to me to remind me I did it. I forget that because I'm not really out there for it, but I just know I want to inspire them, knowing whether or not someone came up to me last night crying their eyes out at the show and specifically said, you inspired me so much. And I'm like, sick. I did what I came here to do. I actually failed on my strategic marketing. I didn't talk much about my new single. I didn't I barely plugged my social media handles. I didn't get that many followers, all these different things. I was like, I failed on those things. Like I should have been a little smarter about my marketing plan for this new single I have coming up in 3 days. But man, I did one thing right. I did what I came here to do. Inspired. I put myself out there, told my story of how insecure I was, how scared I was, in hopes that one person would be inspired. And it worked. I'm like, all right, okay. Let's try it again. Now what did I do? I analyzed my mistakes. Next time, bro, slow down, say your stuff. You have a show, you have these things, you have a new single coming out. Talk about it. Slow down a little. Analyze your mistakes. Next time I come back and I play the next show, that won't happen. But I'm getting the right foundation right. And I'm getting the right thing that I came here to do right. But you gotta put yourself out there. You gotta try. You gotta try. You gotta try. you gotta freaking try. Like, that's when you begin to learn. That's when you begin to trust. That's when you begin to like, life starts to get exciting because you're putting yourself out there.
Dream, do, pray. That sounds like the name of your next album or something, you know. So the yeah, that's an amazing response. So the last question for you to conclude this amazingly nuanced and insightful interview and conversation with you is the signature discover more question. And also, I sensed a lot of the discover more ethos in your story. So, you know, coincidence? I think not. But with the last question is discover more. It's twofold. Part A, I like to challenge you with the ethos of discovering more, seeking discomfort, because Discover More podcast is a sanctuary for seekers of curiosity and discomfort. I like to challenge you to share this on the podcast, whether it's professional life, personal life, interpersonal life. What's an area in your life or subject or a topic that you feel inspired to discover more about after this encompassing 3-hour conversation? And the second layer is what's an area in the respective listeners' lives you like to challenge to discover more about after hearing this inspirational conversation?
Yeah, I think from this conversation, what I'd want to discover more about myself is that relationship between, when you brought it up, I was like, oh, shoot, that relationship between how the team, human psychology, the teamwork, how is that actually playing a deep part into my process, and understanding how much of when I was a kid and understanding how I played soccer and how that biggest year of my life in soccer and the last year I ever played competitively that had those incredible results. How much does that play into incredible results in this process and sustaining a strong career, a strong, support fan base, strong family? How is this gonna actually play into it? And like kind of really discover more about. I've hated the buzzword leadership, so I've kind of not read a single book about leadership in the last like 3 4 years. But now I'm like, I want to pick those books back up because I was always like, I'm not leading it, just doing music, I'm not leading it. But now I'm like, it's not about am I leading anyone? Like, do I have a team I'm managing maybe? Or so that's what I kept thinking. I was like, I don't really do that. Run a team like that. And when I start a business again, then I'll pick those books up. That's what I kept saying to myself. But I realized that like leadership within the bounds of a dance between people in the studio, leading the moment, leading the intention, bringing the intentionality. There's something to that I kind of want to study a little more and discover more about. It's like the intentionality of the process that has to do with the team and us getting to a collective goal. There's something there. So I definitely am like really interested in that. And I didn't see those 2 points connecting till you said it. And I'm like, oh shoot, I should look into that. And for the listeners, I would just hope that like I told somebody this the other day, and the last thing I'll say is like I was trying to give on TikTok. I gave like a little. It's like this is what manifestation is to me. It's me telling you I'm gonna go straight and then I'm gonna take a right. In the city, that means I could go straight. I can go for a walk. A friend could pull up on me. They could start talking to me. I could say, I forgot something at home real quick. I might turn around. Oh, there's an Orange Theory here. Maybe I want to stop in and get work. Oh, I should grab something at Alchemist at the coffee shop. Actually, I should run over here and there's a homeless guy. And I saw somebody the other day pushing this homeless guy in his wheelchair. I should go help him out. Okay, now I made it to the right. I made it there maybe later than I wanted to. I made it there at a different point. I made it there maybe different clothes. Maybe I turned back around and put different shoes on, like in the house, and then went back out and then took the right. Maybe whatever. But when I show up, you're gonna be like, "Oh, Ben, you did what you said you're gonna do." And someone was like, "No, that's like not manifestation because manifestation is woo woo. It is spiritual. It is." And I was like, "It's both." And you can only understand that tension of it's both when you understand who you were created to be, your created order. So I believe I'm a created being by God. I believe there's intricate intentionality within me by God, that there's practical value in me saying, I'm going to go do something and take a right because as you know, in clinical science, there's something going on between me saying something and the hormones and the things that are going on in my brain that come out when I say I'm going to do something. That when I say something multiple times, maybe my heart rate gets elevated to a certain degree, allows me to focus in, and now I'm able to go meet the challenge of what I've said. There's a beautiful physical, actual. There's meaning to the physical that's happening. Something very physical happens. There's science. But the fact that it's happening is spiritual. The fact that it's that intentional is what's so crazy to me. As I'm learning about how we humans achieve goals, and people, Andrew Huberman in a podcast talking about my heart rate goes elevated at a certain place and my head bows, and then I'm able to go and I'm able to meet this when I think about a place of, oh, what happens if I don't achieve this? And then if I can do that as well as visualize the end goal in mind, that's how I'm able to achieve goals on a more regular, more consistent basis. But it's because my heart rate pumps blood at my blood pressure happens here. And I'm sitting there like in awe, not in awe of like just the science and like saying, well, the science means negates the God. I'm like, dude, do you understand how intentional and how incredible the design of humans has to be? If that's what's happening for us to achieve a goal, there has to be a God. And so for me, it's like it's both. And so it is the manifestation is the I'm going to go straight and take a right. All the journey along the way, but the fact that it's even happening, that simple, that that it's so intricate and so complex at the same time. And that's the beauty of it. So anyone listening to this, I'd want them to go on a journey and try to discover more about how we as humans, who were we created to be? That's what I'm fascinated with. That's what music is keeping me going on, is I'm fascinated with who was I created to be, and how is this music journey showing me more of that, so I can give that to my daughter who might do something different, my wife who might do something different, but they might come with the same understanding of who they were created to be able to achieve beautiful results in their life that affect them, but also affect everyone.
Beautifully said, Ben. And I'm not a quantum physicist, I'm too dumb for this, but there is scientific backing of called the quantum entanglement for anyone that's interested in it. Who there's a lot of skepticism about law of attractions, law of manifestations. They're not actual natural law per se, but at least on a clinical perspective, there are physiological and emotional connections to optimality in terms of physiological response when you feel resonated, the frequencies and the endorphins. This is not a space to me to go too nerdy in the neurobiological aspect to that, but to people who are maybe subconsciously resisting to what Ben shared and the ethos and what the insight he's really trying to encourage people to think more about and discover more about. I would urge you to do more research on your own. At the end of the day, we're just two individuals who have something to share based on our collective and respective journeys. But if you're interested, just look up quantum entanglement and it will tell you about how the matter is just a perception. And when you perceive it, it zaps into existence, which is the metaphysical aspect. But yeah, Ben, this has been awesome conversations and there's nothing else for me to do but to roll out the red carpet for you. Tell the people how they could connect with you on social, offline, and to see if there's any exciting projects on the horizon.
Yeah, I have Lost Control is my single that is coming out. Depending on when this comes out, Lost Control probably will obviously be out. It comes out in 3 days, but that single will be out, and I'm excited for that. That is part of a project that a journey I'll be on the next year and a half. But the first part of this EP will be called Black Boys on the Radio, and it'll feature Lost Control and Psycho, as well as some other songs like Black Boys on the Radio, Hands Up, Don't Shoot, Finish the Job. And that'll be kind of part one. And that'll be out on June 14th, later this year. And so my goal in this whole next year and a half process, as I roll out more songs that are part of this Black Boys on the Radio project, will be to kind of tell the story of me, race, learning how to dream, stepping out of my comfort zone, embracing my authentic story. And so if they want to follow, if any of you guys want to follow, you can follow on Carter Benjamin, which is my Instagram. Carter Benjamin 2 is my TikTok. And I have a lot of fun on TikTok because I had to put a lot of walls down because it was like, this is uncomfortable, this is weird. And I'm like, I'm too old for this. And I didn't really like it. And then, because I didn't like it, I was so fascinated with my resistance to it that I kept trying it. And now I like enjoy it and I see and I've learned all of the reasons why I hated it. And some of them were good reasons, some of them were just stupid. But it's a platform I actually use quite often. So you can follow me there. And then obviously my name, Benjamin Carter, look up all the songs. Well, the catalogs will be anywhere you stream music, whether that's, Amazon, let's shout out Amazon. They don't get love on music, or Spotify, Apple, any of those. You'll be able to find the full catalog of all these songs and projects over the next year and a half as I roll out, this story.
Yeah, just to the listeners listening, if you have made it till this end, of course, much gratitude. But please check out Ben's music. And like I said, his music is so thought-provoking, but it's also like a breath of fresh air without neglecting and negating the grooviness of the music. The tempos, the rhythm, it's so catchy. And you will find yourself hymning to his song in no time. So hugely recommend to everyone to check him out. And Ben, lastly, I just want to say that, the prayer is super powerful. And of course, prayer, or the act of prayer, transcends religion, organized religion, spirituality. You can pray to your ancestors. You can pray to your passing loved ones. And there are a lot of psychological evidence empirically to support the power of chanting. That's another topic for another day. But yeah, to all the listeners, I've had a tons of blast with this episode. Ben's an amazing guy, and I really appreciate generosity. And to everyone, if you're still listening, I really appreciate you for joining on the train of Discover More with myself and Benjamin Carter this week. And as always, hope to see you again next time at Discover More. Thank you.